safely. It's 2-0 Cardinals. Swing and a fly ball. Belted deep right. That ball is gone. A 3-run homer for Ciani. Instead of strike 3, it's a 3-run bomb. That's lifted toward left. Donovan long run. Still coming, slowing on the track. And that's your ball game. The Cardinals win it 6-3. And they are rolling again.
That's what it sounded like last night on Bally Sports Midwest as the St. Louis Cardinals have now won 6 of their last 8 games. Alex, I'm not ready to choo-choo here on 101 ESPN, but we're getting close. They're playing good baseball right now. That's the most important thing. Last night, you got exactly 0 hits from Paul Goldschmidt or Nolan Arenado. Now, you did get a run out of Paul Goldschmidt. He took a walk, ended up getting on base, coming around to score in that one. But you are getting enough from the bottom of your order. You're getting enough from your supplementary pieces to make up for your lack of production from the middle of the order. This is what I thought the offense would look like coming into the season. Now, I was wrong. Dead wrong for 6 weeks. The offense stunk. Stunk, no other way around it. But they've been better lately, Alex, and we're starting to see some signs of life, some good pitching that you're seeing. Defense, weird inning notwithstanding from Masyn Winn last night, has been good the vast majority of the season. You had a weird one on Sunday and then a weird one yesterday. Hopefully that's just a couple of days where strange stuff happens. Baseball is odd that way sometimes. I like watching this baseball team right now. They're fun to watch, dude. And they're doing this against Boston's a solid team. Baltimore's a fantastic baseball team. I think you felt that last night on the other side of the field. And they've been doing it against better opponents lately. What are you seeing right now? What are you liking right now out of the St. Louis Cardinals, Alex?
Yeah, I'm not ready to hop aboard the choo-choo train like BK, and frankly, I don't think you need to get on that train. We all know what happens when you hop aboard the train, it derails fast. But that was the most impressive victory by the Cardinals to me since they won the series against the Arizona Diamondbacks back in the end of April. I mean, and frankly, it makes sense because there was a whole lot of losing up until that point. But I took nothing from that Angels series. Even the Milwaukee Brewers win, took nothing from it. Even in the Red Sox game, it felt good, but it felt like under false pretenses. That was the game, though, that I looked at and I said, okay, they might have figured something out because they were coming up with big hits with 2 outs, which to me is a massive confidence booster for players. When you've got 2 outs and you're down to the last situation, how many times have we seen the Cardinals strike out in that spot or ground into a double play or fly out, and now you're coming up with singles. The bounces are going their way, too. That hit by Masyn Winn yesterday where it was up and high into the zone, that doesn't happen 2 weeks ago. So they're getting really good bounces. They look confident at the plate. And by they, I mean all of these other guys that aren't Goldschmidt and Arenado. And you're finding ways to win still. Against that team that I think a lot of people view as a World Series contender, that's the start of me going, okay, you've really got my attention now.
Yeah, you're really starting to gain my attention because you're now looking like a watchable product and be a capable team that can go on a run, because all facets of the game look pretty good right now. Offensively, they're starting to slug for a little bit of power. Michael Ciani had his breakfast, had his Wheaties before the game, and then you've got the pitching staff that looks good. Sonny Gray goes out and shoves for a couple innings, runs into a weird fifth inning there, but for the most part played well. The defense had that one little hiccup, but for the most part they've been good, and now they're starting, when they can put pressure on a team and score first, they can start to really open up the running game, as you saw last night with 4 stolen bases. Guys, that's the formula for success right there. That's the 4 keys to baseball: hitting, fielding, pitching, and running the bases. So they're good at all 4 of those aspects currently. Right now. Yeah. Now, we'll see if it sustains, but right now they're doing it, and they're doing it in an important stretch because, by the way, this stretch could have put the nail in the coffin for the Cardinals.
Absolutely.
And they took 2 or 3 from a very good Boston Red Sox team. That Sunday lineup, I don't need to go back to it, but you win game 1, and we talked about it yesterday at the end of the show. That's the game you have to win with your ace on the mound. And then you find a way to try and win one with Gibson and Lynn coming up here in the next 2 games. And then you got the Cubs coming to town. So this stretch where it was like, whoa, they missed their chance to beat up on some bad teams. Okay, you figured it out for the right now. And if you continue to play like this, they're going to be able to put together some wins and be able to get closer to that 500 mark.
It's why I didn't want to play the schedule game recently. Like when we did that and we were talking about it, it's like, hey, you could go against X, Y, or Z, good matchup, bad matchup, etc. Well, the Chicago White Sox are supposed to be the good matchup. That's the team that you go out there and you beat up on. Well, they didn't do it. They didn't get the job done. The Mets, not a great baseball team. They got whomped in that series. The reason why I didn't want to look at it anymore is because it's about how the Cardinals are playing. If the Cardinals are playing their game, they're playing the way that they have in their last 8. They can beat anybody, and I mean anybody. They can beat the Dodgers. I'm not telling you they're going to go out there and destroy them or anything, but they can win a series against the Dodgers.
Relax.
Listen, the Dodgers have not been the team that we expected them to be. The Braves have not been the team that we expected them to be. We'll see what the Cardinals look like here in a couple of weeks when they take on the Phillies. They are the team that has lived up to every possible expectation. When the Cardinals are playing their game, the Orioles are arguably the best team in the league this year. They have that kind of talent. And you beat them head-to-head yesterday because you were the better team on that day. I don't know what that's going to look like today. I don't know what that's going to look like tomorrow. And this is why we've got to see it for a longer stretch of time. They're still 21-26. You're 5 games under 500 right now. This is by no means, no stretch of the imagination, a dominant Cardinals club. But the quote from Django Unchained, "Gentlemen, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention." Right now they have my curiosity. If they continue playing this way for the rest of this series against the Baltimore Orioles, and then they continue doing it this weekend against the Cubs, you will have my attention. That's how you get it. They've got to win 3 of their next 5 games. Got 2 more against Baltimore, then 3 this weekend against the Cubs. Win 3 out of 5, play generally good baseball. You got my attention at that point.
And I think one thing that really comes to my mind when we're watching them lately is, thank goodness the bats are starting to hit because they can stick with their identity. And their identity is going to be pitching and defense this season, right now. Because if you don't have Goldie and Arenado hitting, you're not going to be what I thought this season, which was an offensive identity. You're going to have to go out, you're going to have to pitch well. Your starters may not go 6-7 innings like we thought prior to the season. But if you can get a 5 and dive and with this bullpen, okay, boom, we've got something. But defensively, they did not have to veer away. And they were close to that, I thought. I think they were getting close to the breaking point where it was like, all right, I guess Burley's our left fielder, Carlson's in right, and Newt's in center.
I mean,
which
you had to.
is not a good defensive alignment. But they're able, because the bats are starting to hit all the way through the lineup, they can stick with what needs to be their identity, which is pitching and defense, which Cardinals fans should love.
I think the part for me and why I'm still skeptical, and like you said, I think it's a great evaluation of it, BK. Like, you've piqued my
curiosity right now. Not my attention yet, but you got my curiosity right now.
The reason that I can't give them my attention is because, like, you've done this already a couple of times this season where you've won a series. You did it against the Padres and then the Marlins, and then you laid the egg against the Phillies. You did it against the Athletics, and you laid the egg against the Brewers. You did it against the Diamondbacks and the Mets, and then you laid the egg against the Tigers. It just feels like they build you up, and then they shoot you back down. So that Cubs series, I think, is going to be really pivotal because we haven't seen them string together 3 series. We've seen a couple, but we haven't seen them string together 3 competent series where it's been like, okay, every one of these, you're the exact same team. I take the Angels one out of it. What you did against the Orioles last night is what you did against the Red Sox for 2 of 3. Yep. And if you do it again against the Cubs, that's 3 straight series against competitive teams with expectations, and you went out there and outperformed against them. That's how you get the attention.
We had a great text from the 314-399-9646. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Just continuing it along there. They said the Cardinals can't sustain this kind of winning without Goldie and Arenado hitting. 100% agree. Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree with that statement from the 314. That is the next thing that has to happen. You're getting good contributions from the supplementary pieces right now in your lineup. Alec Burleson looks fantastic. Ivan Herrera coming through with some big hits. Nolan Gorman finally looks like himself more so. I know last night you had the strikeouts, but he's seeing the ball better. You can tell with his approach at the plate. He's taking more walks. He's more patient. He looks more selective. The numbers aren't there. I think they will follow eventually. Masyn Winn looks fantastic. We'll get to Sirianni here in a minute.
He's so like Mo.
We all don't even know who he is.
Sirianni, somebody. The guy is playing really well in center field right now. We'll get to him here in a second.
Still don't know who he is.
The supplementary pieces look good. None of that matters in the long term if you don't get Goldie and Arenado going. Those guys have to be the fulcrum of the lineup. Everything pivots from them. And right now, they're just not good enough. You have to get power. You have to get consistent at-bats from those 2 guys. You're not getting that right now. So you can win this way, but eventually, the reason why these guys are supplementary pieces that aren't batting 3-4 every single day is because they're not expected to be what you saw last night every single day. They're not those guys. Eventually, they're going to go through slumps, and their slumps are going to last longer than what you'd expect out of Goldie and Arenado, even though this year it's been like 7 straight weeks of this for Goldie and Arenado. They've got to get going, and if they do, that's when you can really start to see something special from the offense. Ollie Marmol was asked last night about Michael Sinise, Michael Sirianni, Michael Ciani, get his name correct.
Gary Sinise.
And what he's seen from him so far this year, really impressive by the young man in center field.
Ciani's taking really good at-bats. Big homer today. That clubhouse is feeling pretty good about it right now. But he continues to put the tough at-bat together. He doesn't give in. He knows when to lay it down. Even today, I mean, try to take it with him on that bunt. Obviously harder than he wanted, but it's the right idea. So he plays the game the right way. And then defensively, he's absolutely elite. He's playing center field like extremely well. So.
Dude, I've mentioned for the last 3 years, I think, I believe that Kevin Kiermaier would be the perfect player for what the Cardinals are looking for from center field. Lefty bat, excellent defense. He's got a great arm. Ciani doesn't necessarily have that, but gives you just enough offensively. Takes his walk, situationally is going to be good for you. If the situation calls for a bunt, he's going to lay it down. It's going to go well. If the situation calls for a fly ball, he's going to go ahead and get that in the air for you. I think Kevin Kiermaier is one of the more underrated players of this era.
Are you about to make an announcement right now?
I've already made an announcement. I'm a Michael Ciani guy. I have been so impressed by this guy, man. I think he's got a place on this team, not just for the 2024 season, but potentially beyond. Not as a necessarily everyday center fielder. We'll see what the rest of the year looks like. He's going through a hot streak right now. But his offense is good enough to keep him in the lineup, especially against right-handed pitching. As a lefty out there, his defense, T-Bone mentioned before the show today, is Gold Glove caliber. If he continues playing every day, he's got a real shot at winning a Gold Glove based on his numbers so far this season. This is exactly what they've been missing, man. We talked about their defensive issues over recent seasons. It really comes down to 2 spots. They didn't have a true center fielder. They didn't win. Bader was out. They didn't have a true shortstop. Well, right now you have both of those things, and we're seeing what the results look like when you have those guys in your lineup.
It's your best option. I mean, you have no other center fielder that plays defense to the level that Michael Ciani plays with. And look, he's not the most incredible offensive weapon for you, but as we've talked about it a lot of times with the Cardinals, if you've got one bat that is average at best, but he can come away with some good hits every once in a while, but he's so crucial to your team overall, you can win with that. The reason that we're talking about Michael Ciani is, one, he had that big hit last night, but over these last few games, it's not like Michael Ciani's been a 300 hitter.
He is, actually. In his last 45 at-bats, he's batting .350.
That's just...
No, it's amazing.
You know how like they say this isn't sustainable?
Oh, forget that.
Oh, it's not sustainable at all. He's on the ground all the time.
I don't care. I don't care.
Well, send him to the minors to get the ball off.
This is Jordan Walker's hitting streak from last year.
Yeah.
Definitely unsustainable, but it's fun while it's happening.
But you can win with that, and they're showcasing it right now. Honestly, at least the way that Ollie was talking about him and the reaction to that clubhouse, it feels a lot like a Nathan Walker type of player, where like everybody is so jacked when he comes away with a big play. But the defense is the reason we're talking about Michael Ciani right now. There's nobody that can even hold his bat to what he's doing in center field. So, yeah, run with this right now if you're the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think he's their best overall center fielder in the organization right now, and that's with Tommy Edman included.
And Victor Scott?
Yeah, Victor
he's
Scott
better
can't
defensively
hit.
than Victor Scott right now.
Yeah,
Watching the two of them,
it's equal too. Like, it's very close between those two, but he can hit at the major league level. You know, Victor Scott, like if Victor Scott hit 200, we would have been celebrating. You know who'd still be here? Victor Scott. Problem is he couldn't hit 200. He could barely hit 100. So he's their best overall center fielder. There should not come a time in which they say he's not their everyday center fielder this year. He needs to be that guy. I don't care what the batting average is.
back down.
Yes, if the offense as a whole comes back down, sure, we'll have a conversation. But again, he shouldn't be the guy that I'm focusing on then. Then I should be having the conversation of, okay, should we be plucking Nolan Gorman or Alec Burleson from the lineup?
Same thing we said with
Brendan
Victor
Donovan,
Scott.
maybe. Is Lars Nootbaar needing time to reset? Michael Ciani should just be stamped into that 9-hole, and they should never pull him out of that spot because he is their best everyday center fielder right now.
Cardinals have my curiosity. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. We're getting closer to the choo-choo return. We'll see if that's able to happen by this time next week. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys want to get involved in the show, the Air Comfort Service text line is the way to do so, 314-399-9646, or the YouTube chat, often running the graveyard, active as always at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. In 15 minutes, we're going to talk to Jeremy Rutherford. He was able to catch up with the chairman of the Blues, Tom Stillman. Some interesting quotes in that story. We'll talk to him about it coming up at 11:30. But next, how'd you feel about Sonny Gray asking out of the game last night? I was very surprised when I turned on the radio this morning and heard what Randy Carricker had to say about it. We'll give you our thoughts next here on 101 ESPN.
Michael!
You're not Michael Phelps. You're Michael Cera.
That ball drilled through the left side, a base hit for Ryan O'Hearn, and the Orioles have their first 2 hits of the game in the 6th inning. Slow bouncing ball to third from Westberg. Barehand play, Arenado, safe at first. Fly ball left, that'll be caught by Donovan. That'll be a big second out. Sonny Gray had a 30-pitch 6th inning. The Cardinals will roll the dice and go to the bullpen here.
Sonny did his job. He was cruising, man. I think 57 pitches through the first 5 innings, and then ran into a little bit of some non-plays and tried to pitch out of it. But he did more than his job. I mean, those first 5 innings were absolutely elite.
I felt great going out for the 6th, and I felt great during the 6th. And then I felt really good to the righty. And then when he hit the dribbler to third, I kind of hit a little bit of a wall after that one. And then when Santander was up, I just felt like I was kind of like searching, kind of feeling my way through that at bat. And when he flew out after that, I was like, I got to be done.
That's what it sounded like yesterday, according to Bally Sports Midwest. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. I assumed when I woke up this morning, Alex, that I was going to be flipping over to 101 ESPN. I watch on the YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN. I thought for sure I was going to tune in and Randy Carricker would come on the air today and say, that's why Sonny Gray is not an ace. That's why you can't trust him to be your number one. The humidity already getting to him. And I was going to disagree with him to high hell. I thought last night he earned even more trust from his manager with the way that he approached that. However, I understand the old school way of thinking. Chris Carpenter, Adam Wainwright, these old, the horse that you expect to be your ace level starter.
You were going to say old farts, weren't you?
That is not what you would typically expect from them, dude. The idea of a starter asking out of a game in the 6th inning with less than 100 pitches is foreign to so many that have watched this team for so long. And Alex, I think it was the right call. I think it was the right call last night, given the situation in which you were in right there. You're up 5-3. You got to win that game. At the time, you had a lefty coming up. Obviously, it ended up being a righty. They decided to pinch hit there because you had JoJo Romero coming in. But you have JoJo available. You've got your back end of the bullpen ready to go. He had done his job up to that point. And he had earned the trust of the manager previously when Ollie had come out in a couple of starts so far this year. And Sonny told him his game plan to get the next guy out. And Ollie said, I trust you. Let's go get it. In this spot, Ollie had to trust Sonny that Sonny had nothing left. He had given all he had last night, and in a 31-pitch inning, he needed to come out of the game. I understood it. I think now moving forward, if you're Ollie Marmol, you have even more trust when he tells you that I've got something left in the tank. I can go out there and get this guy out if that's the way that you're going to handle it moving forward. So I think this is a very modern approach to that spot in the rotation. I was shocked, genuinely shocked, when Randy had the same take this morning as I did. Could not believe it. I have never been more surprised by anything on this radio station than I was this morning when I heard Randy say that. What did you think, Alex, last night as you saw Sonny Gray motion to the dugout that he was ready to come out of the game with 2 outs in the 6th inning against the Orioles?
You know, I originally thought what you thought, where he motioned in that scenario with 2 on and 2 outs and thinking, okay, he knows himself, and I can't take anything away from a guy who says, I'm not going to detriment my team even more, so take me out of the game so somebody else can handle this. But then the more I kind of pondered on it, the more I found myself falling on the other side of what you said, the old school. Like,
sure.
And look, I appreciate what Sonny Gray did, but I think if we're calling a player the number one, the ace, that's the guy that wants the ball in any situation, no matter what. And in that spot, I probably would have felt a lot better if Sonny Gray, when Ollie stepped out there and said, no, leave me in. I'm going to go get this guy. Because that's what we are accustomed to seeing with our top guy. The top guy that you have on the mound, the stopper that we call them. In a situation like that where I need one more out, that he didn't even put himself in that situation. It was errors and bad decisions on the field. And I get that he pitched his way through that mess in the 6th inning. But you had one more out to get. And in that spot, you being the number one guy, you making sure that, hey, we're not going to overuse our bullpen tonight. I'm going to get this last guy out. And if it blows up in your face, cool. I'll take the pushback on this. But I got one more guy to get out because that's my job tonight. That's just the way I viewed the situation with Sonny Gray.
I do think there would have been a lot of people today, and I would have been curious what the morning show would have done here. If this had blown up in their face, because it could have. It totally could have. They decided to bring in, and all he knew was going to happen. He mentioned it postgame last night. They pinch hit. They go with a righty against JoJo Romero, who has thrown 1 million pitches over the last week. If that had blown up in their faces, I think a lot of the analysis would have been, Sonny's got to get that last guy out. He's got to find a way to battle through there. JoJo is exhausted. You knew he wasn't going to be able to get through this. You're up 5-3. You need your ace to go out there and finish off that inning. I think that would have been the reaction from a lot of people today had this gone in a different result. Exact same process, different result. That's why I'm grading the process here. I think the process is good. And if you continue going along this way with your number one starter having this kind of a relationship with the manager, where they clearly have a lot of trust in one another, which is crucial. How many times in St. Louis have we heard of guys not trusting their manager and so not telling the manager what was hurting them? And then it ends up becoming a bigger thing than it should have. I can't remember who it was. It was a few years ago. A young starter had this where they just kept pitching through something. This was like 5 years ago here in St. Louis. They kept pitching through something, and eventually they were like, yeah, listen, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to make more of it than what was happening. I didn't want to be the guy that said, hey, this is hurting me, and that's not the culture of baseball.
Had to be Jack.
I can't remember who it was. I think it was with Matheny at the helm,
Jack
honestly.
saying I'm out.
That's clearly not the case anymore here. That is not the culture that is instilled inside of that clubhouse. And I think that's a really good thing for the long term with this club. But T-Bone, what was your reaction last night?
Yeah, I'm honestly torn on it because I do think having that kind of trust between a manager and the number one starter is very crucial to what you just brought up there. And I honestly love players that are honest with their manager, and there's just, it works out better in the long run when that's the case. And you know what? Maybe we're having a different conversation if this was like in the playoff race in September and this situation arose, but I'm also an old school guy at heart. I miss the pitchers hitting. So when I see my number one saying, get me out of this ball game, it didn't sit right with me because when you're a number one starter, and I believe Sonny Gray is that. Like I love the signing at the time, and I still believe he's one of the best pitchers, maybe one of the most underrated pitchers in all of baseball. If you're my number one, there should be no matchup that I don't like with you, even if you are getting tired. And so for him to wave out Oli Marmol, and look, I think they were going to the bullpen no matter what, and Oli said that postgame, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to a worse matchup where I know for a fact that they're going to pinch hit. Even though I like JoJo Romero and I think JoJo's got good stuff, he's thrown a lot of pitches in the last 7 days. I think he's thrown like 100 pitches in the last 7 days. So I'm going to a worse matchup with JoJo Romero against a right-hander that's coming off the bench rather than sticking with my number one who should not have any sort of disadvantage. I should have the advantage every time he throws a pitch to any batter 1 through 9 in that lineup. That's where it doesn't sit right with me. Because if you are the number one and you are the dog, you are the ace of this staff, you should never be the guy that wants out of a baseball game. So that's why I find myself torn. I'm not going to be super critical of it because it did work out. And if it didn't, I can tell you now I would be screaming from the mountaintops that Gray's got to be in that game last night. But I find myself torn because I do like the fact that he's willing to be honest with Oli Marmol, and I love the relationship Oli has with the pitchers on the mound. I really do. I love that he comes out and will let them stay in a game. But the old school in me says that he can't be the guy that's requesting out of that baseball game.
I just look at the number ones around the league, and look, if this was September, I think I would be a lot more adamant about it, saying like, dude, you're the big guy, and that's a big situation. Even with the win, I want you to take the reins, and it's different because it's May 21st, and he is coming off of an injury. But, I mean, you look around the league at those number one guys, those top dogs, that's just what T-Bone said. They're not coming out of that game for any scenario. And if that would have blown up, and again, I know we're playing the what-if games, I think there would be a lot more criticism with it. I'm glad Sonny knows himself. I'm glad Oli has the relationship with the pitchers because, frankly, it worked, and I look like the idiot right now. But I'm groomed to know what those number ones are like, and in any situation, it's like, no, bleep off. I'm not stepping off of this mound.
As a runner myself, and I'm going to go ahead and use my own running experience.
Not even a weird flex there. Just
explain what it's like to be a major league starter. I'm sure it's very similar.
As a golfer myself, let me explain.
Dude, when I get tired, I used to try to run through it, right? I would just be like, I'm fine, everything's going to be fine. And then eventually I had overuse injuries as a result of that. Again, I understand that it's different, but Sonny Gray has dealt with a lot of injuries in his career as well. I do wonder if some of his previous history helps to explain how he views some of this right now as well, where he's like, hey, listen, I've had overuse stuff where I would have pitched through this inning and I would have kept going at 30 plus pitches, and it would have came back to haunt me because I would have had an arm that didn't work 3 days later. I would have had a dead arm in my next start, and now 3 starts later, I'm finally recovering. I wonder if there's some of that in there as well, where he's thinking about just not just the here and now, but also what this means for the future for him. And you look at it as well, 2 on, 2 outs, up by 2 runs in that spot, big part of the game on the line, hanging in the balance. I respected the hell out of what he did last night. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Jeremy Rutherford is next.
Terry here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals take game one from the Baltimore Orioles last night, 6-3. They are back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. The SportsCenter update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Earlier today, I read up on The Athletic about Tom Stillman, the State of the Blues retool, and what is coming this summer. He said in part, quote, "It'll be interesting. It already is." That is a quote from Jeremy Rutherford's piece over at The Athletic, and JR joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. You were able to catch up with the chairman of the St. Louis Blues, Tom Stillman. What did you find most interesting from your hour conversation over coffee with Stillman?
Well, I think that line that you just said, right? And, obviously you'd like to go a lot more in depth when somebody teases you like that, like Tom Stillman did. I was asking him about his excitement for the offseason, and that was part of his response when he said, let's just say it's already exciting. And obviously he's having conversations with Doug Armstrong, privy to some of Doug's plans and what the groundwork that he's trying to lay. But once Tom said that and dropped the tease, we both kind of got a chuckle about it. And I knew there wasn't any follow-up that I could ask that was going to lead to more information. But at least we got that.
You didn't find a way to sneak into the conversation. Would you say it's exciting, meaning a pending free agent in a year could be traded?
Yeah, pending free agent. Does it rhyme with Putchuk? Does it? No.
Could there a goaltender be on the move elsewhere?
Right. So it was definitely a situation where it's like, okay, well, that's going to be part of the headline.
Yeah. Did you get the vibe in your conversation with him, JR, that if they do make an interesting move, in the words of Tom Stillman, it would be more likely to come via trade than free agency this time around?
I would think so, because he did mention BK 3 or 4 times when I talked about this offseason. Tom Stillman said, hey, look, it doesn't always have to come in the form of a splashy free agent signing. And, not all of our conversation made it to the article, but, he really talked a lot about draft and development, and he felt like last year was a big step forward for the organization, both off the ice with the drafting of the 3 first-round picks. Also, you have Snuggerud on the way, even though that's going to be delayed. And then the team competing through Game 80 on the ice in terms of being in the playoff standings. So he felt like it was a step forward. I don't anticipate any major free agent signings, but I do agree with you that if something's going to happen, I think it would most likely happen via trade. But I keep saying this, guys. I don't know that it's going to be some massive trade that's going to bring in a player that, just excites people, wows people. If that's going to happen, it's got to fit the age bracket that the Blues are looking for, and those players are really hard to come by. I think it would be just kind of massaging the roster, moving some parts, and clearing some room for what could be in the future.
JR, that was the other thing that really stuck out to me in your piece about it with Tom Stillman, was talking so much about that age group and making sure it's in the same time frame. And when I hear him say that, I think of Robert Thomas, who's 25 years old. I think of Jake Neighbors. I think of Snuggerud, of Bolduc, of Dean. And that brings up 2 players that I really wonder how they view fitting into their time frame. And it's Pavel Buchnevich and it's Jordan Binnington. Now, for Binnington, I can make the excuse, you need to have a winning goaltender. But how does a 30-year-old pending free agent who by the end of that contract is going to be 36, 37, 38 years old, how does he fit into that same window with all of these 25-year-olds?
Yeah, and both of those are legitimate questions, both Buchnevich and Binnington, and I agree with you. Do they fit? On the surface, it doesn't seem like it. I didn't get into that with Tom. Those are more Doug Armstrong-type questions, which we asked a few of those at the end of the season, and we'll continue to ask those as we get into the offseason. Tom, I was more big picture, just about how he sees the organization moving forward. But I agree with you. What you guys were saying earlier holds true. If you're 2 to 3 years away from being a strong competitive team, i.e. a playoff contender, then what does Jordan Binnington do for you for the next couple of years? Well, the strongest point is he keeps you competitive and allows your young players to be in a winning environment until Joel Hofer is ready. But with Pavel Buchnevich, to me, it's even a little bit different. Yeah, like Bennington, he keeps you competitive, and you can win with him. But, after 33, he'll be 33 the third year of the contract. You're going to be a better team at that point. But he's still got 5 years left on the deal, and that contract would go till, let's say 8 years, till he's 38. So these are key questions that are more for Doug Armstrong than Tom Stillman.
So one guy that I'd be curious about, JR, in that regard, we're talking to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. He's joining us here on 101 ESPN. A guy that Alex has brought up a number of times is Martin Necas. And when we talked to Doug Armstrong, he had mentioned at the end of the season, hey, we're not looking for a number 2 center. That needs to be Dalibor Dvorsky. Necas, one of the reasons why I find him to maybe be an interesting guy this offseason, he does fit into the age range that we're talking about. He's 25. He has history both at center and on the wing. So if you wanted to do something similar to what they did with Thomas, where you start out Dvorsky on the wing and then eventually move him into center, he has that kind of flexibility. He's a pending RFA, so he's going to get some kind of an extension, and it sounds like that's unlikely to happen with Carolina. Even if it's not that specific name, is that the type of trade that you think could be of interest for the Blues this offseason?
I think it could be. I'll say this, and this isn't specific to Necas, but in talking to Tom yesterday, they don't want to do anything that's going to tie up spots for the players they have coming in the next couple of years. And I realize that Necas or anybody that you bring in, that's type of trade, they could still be a part of this thing along with Dvorsky, along with Snuggerud, along with Otto Stenberg in a few years. I think that the type of player that you're talking about fits into that, like you said, with the age bracket. But, if you're going to chew up a position that they have penciled in for one of their guys, then I don't think we'll see something done in that regard. So they're going to have to make improvements. It's not all going to come from the draft and development. They're going to have to go outside the organization. Is now the time, or is 2 to 3 years the time? What I gathered in the interview with Mr. Stillman is that if that type of player is available now, they're willing to drop the money and spend to the cap. But those are his words, is those players aren't often available. So you just have to continue to explore and see which players are out there like an agent.
Jerry, you see this team from start to finish. When do you feel like is going to be the right time to pull the trigger on trades?
Well, it seems like it's Doug Armstrong's told me this 1,000 times. It's a deadline league, and so typically we don't see anything till closer to the draft, and then we've seen things like the Justin Falk trade that happens right before training camp starts. So I would say those 2 time periods, the draft. Sometimes there's a lot of hype about deals being made at the draft this year. Guys, I got to take one for the team. Going to have to go to Vegas and sit in the Sphere for the draft.
We tried. Damn. Yeah, we tried.
Yeah. Told my wife it's going to be hard to leave the family that weekend. Baseball tournaments and everything. But somehow I'll get on that plane and get to Vegas. But that's a time when a lot of deals are made. We go back a few years. The Blues get Braden Shannon, a blockbuster deal at the trade, and then, as I mentioned, Falk leading into training camp. So there's definitely some lulls in the offseason. We're in one right now. We'll be in another one after free agency. But in terms of trades, that's the 2 times I'd keep my eyes on.
I framed the question poorly, Jer. I meant more so like in the trajectory of this timeline that the Blues are talking about with their roster. Like, do you feel like that the time to pull a trade off for a player that can help them now is in a couple of years? Or do you feel like that this should be the offseason that they view it?
Yeah. So both ways. I think everything I just said still stands in terms of this offseason. But bigger picture, I see what you're saying. Here's how I view it. I think you have to see what you have. Like, we can talk about Dalibor Dvorsky being a number 2 center, and he probably will be, and perhaps he could be a number 1 center one day. But, let's see what they have in him. Let's see what they have in Snuggerud. So I think that, you could continue to explore, and if you see somebody that you feel fits into your plan, make that trade now. Maybe that trade won't be available in a year or 2 when you're ready to be contenders. But I guess I just wouldn't jump the gun and spend a ton of money on a guy who you don't know how he's going to fit in, and you don't know what you have in some of these other guys, and you're probably on board with that. I think that one thing Tom said yesterday too is, you wait 2 to 3 years, you see what your holes are, you see how these guys develop, and then you can plug in with the money that you have available because you didn't spend it right now.
All right, JR, we'll get you out of here on this. You also had a really good piece, the 10 things Maple Leafs fans should know about Craig Berube as he's going to be the next head coach in Toronto. I find this whole thing to be fascinating, man. They don't have a great goaltending situation in Toronto. Their defensive core has been a liability for them in recent seasons. Those are two things that Berube is going to lean on heavily to have success while he's there. What'd you think of the fit? How much overhaul do you think their roster needs to have for him to be the head coach that they want him to be in Toronto?
I think he's the right guy. Now, this is all going into it. So how's it going to look in a year? I don't know. But I think this is a great fit. I just watched the 20-minute press conference Craig Berube had with the Toronto media, and he was his typical self. I think that team needs some grit, needs some team, somebody preaching about the team, and that's what they talked about in this press conference, guys. Craig Berube said, "I'm a team guy. That's what comes first. I don't care about individuals. It's all about the Toronto Maple Leafs." And I feel, I'm not exactly close to that situation in Toronto, but for years they keep getting knocked out first round, maybe make it to the second round, and it's all about who's putting up 65, 70 goals and guys disappearing in the playoffs. So I think they're going to have to change that roster. You're right. I think they're going to have to bring in some people on that back end and find a goaltender that they can count on. Maybe it is Joseph Woll, but more importantly, it's going to have to be those 20 guys coming together and playing what wins in the playoffs. And I think Craig Berube can help them bring that, but he's going to need some help with that roster.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. People can read your entire interview with Tom Stillman at The Athletic. They can follow you on Twitter. Find the link for that as well at JP Rutherford. Appreciate the time as always. We'll talk with you again next week, my friend.
Yeah, and if I want to get my $20 from Tanner, he told me to tell you guys that Tom Stillman was drinking a cookie crumble frappuccino at
Tom Stillman doesn't want to be.
Tom Stillman drinks his coffee black. I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
Only T-Bone orders that.
It's actually a shame that you would even put his name next to that. Yeah. I think that's.
Me and Tom are
so he was not drinking that, but please Venmo me Tanner later on.
I got you.
Send him his damn money, Tanner, because
Get out of here.
Tom Stillman is a man, and he drinks coffee black.
All right, well, we don't need to go that way. Chair said, all right, I'm out. I'm distancing myself from that comment. T-Bone mentioned earlier today when he goes to Starbucks, what is your order?
First off, it's a cookie crumble frappuccino. Second off, that
sounds like a heart attack.
I've been feeling some chest pains.
I mean, the dude doesn't drink water. Do you think?
It's only if you want something nice and sweet in the afternoon. In the morning I'm going to get my coffee, and I'm going to have Pike's Place or a house blend. In the afternoon, like when I'm going home today, it's hot out.
Alex, I drink black coffee, so I'm not the guy to ask about here. But
unbelievable. My
wife drinks the stuff you're talking about. She enjoys it. My wife drinks way too sweet. Like I'm not going to shame anybody. Drink whatever you like, but no, sir, not for me. Alex, I want to get more into the blue stuff that he mentioned there. We'll get into that in the 12 o'clock hour because I find this offseason to be fascinating. You asked a really good question, though, about the timing of all of this. And I know we took it in a different direction.
Second time around, though, that was my fault.
I think this is the offseason where that needs to happen because of the timing of things contractually. If you're going to trade Jordan Kyrou, it needs to happen now. Like you got to do that before that no trade clause really kicks in earnest. If you're going to, and that happens next offseason, by the way. If you're going to trade Pavel Buchnevich, you got to do it now. Now, the defensemen, that's a different conversation. There will be more value in them later on down the road. It'll be more likely that somebody's willing to take on the contract as there's fewer years remaining. But if you're going to make significant moves with your forwards, this is the year to do that. Brandon Saad even, you got a couple of years left on that deal. I think a contender would be more than happy to take that on. This is the year where you make big sweeping changes to your forwards, if that's what you want to do. And if you want to make a move with Benner, that's this offseason as well. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into Masyn Winn, who, in our opinion, is potentially becoming the next face of the franchise for the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll get into that at 12 o'clock. Questions and answers is next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you. It was hot out yesterday. As we all know, it's going to be hot again today. There is something so satisfying walking into your house when you get home. The AC is kicked on, and there's no concern about it. And that's because Classic Air Care takes care of me and my family. They actually take care of the Ferrario family. They've been working on my dad's house for the last 30 years. They've been making people comfortable. Classic Air Care has since 1926. Whether you're a part of their maintenance program or whether you've purchased or in the market for a new HVAC system, you should use the reliable, the knowledgeable, and the proper company, and that's Classic Air Care. The customer service is incredible. You could see it at their 4.8 ratings with thousands of Google reviews talking about the service, the knowledge, the technicians that are always out there helping you, and that's what Classic Air Care can provide. So if you are in the market, though, for that HVAC system, they provide honesty. They'll go to your house, they'll look it around, they'll tell you what you need, and they'll walk you through the whole process, and they've got financing options available for you, 18-month, 0% financing available through Classic Air Care. Check them out. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Also look online at classicaircare.com.
Three one four 9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now. From the 618, guys, if Siani's still playing the way that he is right now when Tommy Edman is ready, does he become, Tommy Edman, a super utility option for the Cardinals? Does Siani continue to play every day in center field, in your opinion?
Well, yeah, if he's hitting 355.
Well, look at the overall numbers, though. Like, he's batting, I think, 240 on the season with a 660 OPS.
Does Tommy Edman provide you elite defense in center field?
I think yes.
I don't think he provides you elite defense. I think he provides you really good defense, but I don't think he's at Michael Siani level. I mean, we're talking about Michael Siani potentially Gold Glove, and we're a month and a half into the season. I don't think Tommy Edman's that.
I can't be a fraud. I said the same thing about Edman last year when he was in center field. Now, the arm is better slightly with Siani than it is with Edman. I still think it's a liability with him. It's not great, but it's fine. I would just platoon it. I would have Siani starting every day in center against righties, and I would have Tommy Edman starting every day in center field against lefties, and just handle it that way. And I think you'd have a really good center field situation with those two guys. And then when you have Tommy Edman in the starting lineup, Siani can come in late as a defensive replacement, or if you've got a spot where for whatever reason you need a bunt to be laid down, you need a pinch runner, he's an option for all of those things as well. So I think that's the way that I would handle it.
Yeah, I'd be
We're
open.
ways off from any of this, though, by the way.
Yeah, I'd be open to a platoon, but right now I think I would start Siani in center against lefties. I just think he's the better center fielder right now. And I think you can find a other platoon potentially for Edman. Like, he may be starting at second base on those days for Nolan Gorman because Gorman looks lost against lefties. So it just depends on how everything plays out. I'm open to the idea of platoon in center, but as it stands right now, I would go with Michael Siani in center field. Edman kind of becomes that super utility and the first right-handed bench bat against a left-handed pitcher. Like last night, they had a chance to potentially put the game away. They had a left-on-left versus, I think it was Siani, if I remember correctly, that was up at the plate. In that spot, you have Tommy Edman available. He comes off the bench, hits, and you potentially put that game away in the seventh.
Absolutely. All right, from the 314, guys, what scenario would be required for the Cardinals to be buyers at the trade deadline? I don't think it's as difficult as people want to believe for them to get there. Because
I mean, I think you got to be fighting for first place in the NL Central.
I think a wild card spot. If you're within a couple of games of a wild card spot, I think you can. I mean, we've seen this a couple of years ago where it was 2021. I'm not saying you're going to go out there and be like a big time buyer, but 2021 they were right in the wild card mix and they ended up buying.
Okay, well, when I think buyer, I think big time buyer. I mean, if we're going
Cardinals are never a big time buyer.
Well, that's the thing. But I mean, like,
what definition were you using?
I mean, like
You want him to go get Matt Holliday at this year's deadline?
Yeah, that'd be big time buying.
Would be big. I think if you're within 5 games of the wild card and you don't have to leapfrog like more than 2-3 teams, I think you could be a buyer. If you're like 5 out and there's like where it is right now, where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams ahead of you, 6 teams ahead of you, actually, you can't buy in that situation.
I think it's also about the feel of the team. Like, how are you playing? Yeah. How many injuries do you have? If you've got a situation where you think you can actually make a real move in the wild card standings or the division standings, whatever it ends up being, that's more likely at that point. Yeah, go for it. Like, you have very little to lose if you're just going and adding, a number 5 starter, a couple of relievers, whatever. It's not like the cost is exorbitant or anything. So go do that at that point. But if you're not in it, if you really don't believe that you have a chance to make a move in the wild card or in the standings, then sell off, because this is the year that you're set up to do so. You've got a lot of pending free agents. Ryan Helsley would go for a king's ransom at the deadline if you made him available. Kittredge would get you a lot. We'll see what happens with some of your other relievers as well. You've got a couple of starters that could be available. You've got Goldie that could be available. You've got guys that you could trade at the deadline if you really wanted to.
Here's a question for you. If you were kind of stuck in the middle, like you're kind of what we're talking about, like 3 games out, 5 games out, 2 teams ahead of you got a leapfrog, or 3 teams, including that third wild card team, would you do both? Would you add to a certain area, but maybe sell off a Helsley because he would be at what you said? You could get a haul for him.
Start your offseason.
Yeah, get a haul for Helsley and then maybe add something like a number 5 starter, or go out and get a right-handed bench bat. Like, would you do both? I'm anti against doing both. I think it was one of Chaim Bloom's biggest falls in Boston.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that the way that you do.
I think you asked the question, are they a World Series contender? And if they're not, then I would be fine with doing that. I would make the move. Because you're going to bring, I mean, do you think Helsley's going to be here and as effective in a couple of years?
Both.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Sell and buy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would, if I don't see myself as a World Series contender, I would sell Ryan Helsley and buy also.
I see what you're saying.
Because I can compete for a playoff spot still. I don't think Helsley's going to be a part of this team in a couple of years if you're competing then.
I just view it as starting your offseason early. If those guys are available now and they're going to be traded at the deadline and I want them and I would like to add them in the offseason, if they're not going to be available then and I have to do it now, I'm just starting my offseason. That's what I felt like the Blues did. It was waiver claims instead of trades. But when they ended up getting Kapanen and Verona at essentially the deadline a couple of years ago, that was them starting their offseason. They just signed 2 guys that would be able to fill into their top 9, what they believed to be filling in their top 9. By the way, I looked back, 2021, when they ended up adding Lester and Happ, I think was their deadline that year, they were 5 games out of the wild card and 9.5 back in the Central Division. So they were out of it, quote unquote, and they still felt like they could go for it, and that would be the
buying by dumpster diving
for sure. But they're still
like
buyers.
I think more like Jordan Montgomery buying, I think I would need to see you closer to fighting for a division.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to Bet It or Forget It. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. But next, is Masyn Winn becoming the face of the Cardinals franchise? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Rhino Shield taking care and updating the exterior of your home. If you've got a home that looks worn down, and it doesn't matter what type of siding you've got, if you've got brick, if you've got block, if you've got stucco, asbestos, anything that you've got, vinyl, they can change the look of it. I did this with our home when we purchased it 3 years ago. It looked worn down, had water stains on the side. The sun had deteriorated a lot of the paint, and we needed a new look. I was going to do it myself, but then I found out with Rhino Shield, it's not just normal paint. You're using a ceramic coating process, 2 to 3 times the 2 to 3 coating process that they use with the ceramic coating, and it sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any normal paint that you're going to buy. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, and it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. And I can honestly say it looks brand new 3 years later after Rhino Shield did the work. Give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. Have him come out. He'll give you a quote for your home. Maybe you've got a business. It's 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
He lines it over third. It's a run-scoring hit. Burleson scores. Herrera around second. He's going to try for third. Winn's on his way to second. He's in safely. It's 2-0 Cardinals.
I love Masyn Winn. I'm a Masyn Winn guy, Alex. Between Siani and Masyn Winn, they have some players right now, that audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest, that are after my heart. You know what I like? I like athleticism. I like defense first, and I like good contact. And guys that hit for a little bit of power, especially gap-to-gap power, boy howdy, that is me written all over it. Masyn Winn also plays with some serious swagger. I also like that he's got some personality. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but in one of Jim Hayes' in-game updates, they asked him about the City Connect jerseys. And he said, I asked Masyn Winn for his review of the City Connect jersey. And Masyn Winn told me, you want my honest opinion? And Jim Hayes said, of course I do. Masyn, what do you got for me? He said, I think they're fine. He said, I think they could have gone a little bit more creative with them.
And that was right after Bill DeWitt the third was just on talking about how great they were.
BD3. Oh.
It was one of those moments where you can read between the lines, and you don't have to do a whole lot of reading between the lines. Masyn Winn was underwhelmed. Masyn Winn thought they were very safe, which is what many of you in the listening audience right now thought of them as well, I would assume. I know we all had that kind of reaction to him. Nice, but safe. I love this guy, dude. And he feels like the kind of player that has the mentality, the personality, the playing style that can become a face of the franchise. I don't know if he's ever going to put up gaudy numbers. I don't know if he's ever going to be a 300 hitter. I don't know that he's ever going to hit more than 15 home runs in a season, but he plays Gold Glove caliber defense at shortstop. He plays with some pizzazz. He's got the arm that basically nobody else in the league has. And I think he's a better hitter already than many gave him credit for becoming. Where are we at right now with what Masyn Winn could be long-term for the Cardinals, Alex?
I mean, I think where we're at is he's one of the pillars of this team for success. Like, before the start of the season, even last year, it felt like he was just a complimentary piece. It was, you're building around the blocks of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, and then you've got some assets that are just sprinkled in. That no longer feels the case. Masyn Winn feels like he's one of those building blocks you're building around. You've seen the difference that defense can make just solely off of that position from where they were the last few years to this year, just after updating the shortstop position, how clutch he seems to be for this team. It really never has felt like he's gone into a significant lull where you've lost him. It's been a few games, and then you're right out of it the next time around, and he still takes competitive at-bats. And like you mentioned, he's got the swagger. And we were talking about this before the show. I think the last time we've seen somebody that plays with this type of swagger that's not like the superstar with offense is Yadier Molina. Maybe Tommy Pham, but Tommy Pham had the offense, and his swag was more like I've been stabbed 7 times more than it's like I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go up there and win.
Some of that for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like, go back to Yadier Molina in 2006. I think that's when every Cardinals fan fell in love with them. He wasn't that great of a hitter, but he was awesome defensively.
He was a terrible hitter at the time.
Yeah, and he played with just an attitude that was like, I'm the best at what I'm doing right now. I think that is a lot like Masyn Winn for this Cardinals team. So to me, your building blocks are now Masyn Winn, and then who's ready to take that other one?
Yeah, that's where I am. As I think Masyn Winn, to me, it's already becoming his team. Like, I don't feel like Goldie and Arenado are the face of the franchise anymore at this current state because, one, they're not performing, and two, they're kind of blah. There is no swagger for those guys, and that's fine. They don't have to be out there. It'd be weird if Goldie did have some of the swagger for Winn. I think it was Freaky Friday, but I think that Masyn Winn is taking over that role now. It's just a matter of figuring out who's going to be the second guy with him. Because I think you have to have 2 pillars. Honestly, it's probably Contreras for the time being. But who's the other guy that's going to be with them long term? That's where I think the state of the franchise is. I still think that's going to be Jordan Walker. I think Walker's going to end up being that guy, and it's going to be Walker, Winn, and probably Contreras for the next 3 to 5 years. But I do think right now he's already taken over that role. I mean, look at some of the photos they released, the promotional videos for.
Oh, God, we're back to this.
For the Lou jerseys.
Right.
At least he didn't have the Harrison Bader effect.
He's the guy that's front and center, man. It's not Goldie or Arenado. He's the guy that's front and center, and guess who's back?
It was him and Walker, by the way. They had to retake those photos according to Randy Carricker.
Who was the one that they had to put in for Walker?
No, I just went with 3.
Oh,
it was just Goldie Arenado.
Because Nolan Arenado's face looked like I shouldn't even be in this damn picture.
It was just the 3 of them instead of Walker. It was supposed to be the 4, right? You got the present and the future, I think, is what they were kind of hoping to get there with, hey, it's Winn and Walker, and
Walker
it was
still fit future.
Goldie and Arenado. Unfortunately, Walker no
Yeah,
longer
Walker
around.
will be on it next year. Don't worry.
Yeah, June 6th. We'll get him back. He'll be back
sure we
sooner
will.
rather than later.
Either way, photoshopped or not. Guess who's front and center in that photo?
I did find this interesting. So 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We got this from the 314. Guys, stop it. You drooled all over Harrison Bader as the energy guy as well.
Whoa.
Don't blow smoke up our asses again. We've seen this before.
So if they've not watched a lot of Cardinals baseball, got it. Cool.
Good to know.
I feel kind of similarly about Winn as I did about Bader in terms of the role on the team, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think Winn's a better player, though. I think Winn is going to be better and is already better as a hitter than Harrison Bader ever was. And he doesn't strike out the way that Bader did, which is going to just appeal to this fan base more than Bader ever could. But, man, Bader wasn't the problem for the Cardinals, guys. Bader's injuries were a problem, and the lack of support around Bader in the lineup was the problem. He should have never been a guy that was batting sixth. He should have been similar to Winn, where he's batting eighth or ninth every day, and any offense that you get is a boost. But when Bader was in the lineup most of the time while he was here in St. Louis, he needed to be somebody that produced offensively. If you've got a championship contending team, that shouldn't have been the case. And it isn't the case with the teams that he's going to now. They're signing him for his defense. That's what he's going there for. But when you look at what Masyn Winn is bringing to the table, dude, it's everything. It's defense, it's base running, it's hitting, it's a little bit of power here and there. That arm is something that is just special. Like sometimes you just got a trump card as a player, right? And for Masyn Winn, his trump card that maybe Elly De La Cruz, and that's probably about it, can place is, dude, I have a cannon like nobody else in the infield in all of Major League Baseball. And that's something. That's something to watch. You saw yesterday on that double play ball, it's a rocket, 90 miles an hour across the infield. You just don't see that. You don't see that in Major League Baseball. I find him to be so much fun to watch. He's worth the price of admission, which is something we just haven't been able to say about a lot of Cardinals players in recent memory. Like Goldie was that guy. He's great to watch on the field. Dude, the personalities could not be more different between Masyn Winn and what you get from him and Paul Goldschmidt. Masyn Winn has this, like, I love it. It's like a cocky swagger to him. And that's the Yachty. Yachty had that. Arenado was supposed to bring that. And I think to a degree he did early on, but he's in a different stage in his career right now. When you're young, it's a different energy that you provide to the club on a day in, day out basis than what you can when you're 33, 34, 35 years old. I think that's the biggest gap there for me. I think he can be a face of the franchise type of a player. Him and Walker can be those two guys.
And I think Newt as well, because Newt provides some of that. But Newt's got to start being a consistent performer.
Yeah, I don't know if Newt's at the performance level that Masyn Winn has already shown in one full season.
I think what makes it interesting, and I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth, is Newt's got the swagger and has shown some performance. But I think you just have to see it more consistently. We haven't really seen Winn fail yet. Like last year, he technically failed when he got called up, but that was like, you knew that was going to happen. Like you knew he probably wasn't ready for the majors, but it was, hey, let's get him a cup of coffee at the big league level so he can work on stuff in the offseason so he looks like he does right now at this point in the season.
Did you know he's on pace this year for like 25 stolen bases?
Winn is?
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me now.
I need to see that number go up a little bit.
I mean, if he finishes the year slightly above league average offensively at the plate and he gives you 25 stolen bases as a rookie shortstop while playing Gold Glove caliber defense, it's going to go down as one of the better rookie seasons that we've seen in the last 20 years for the Cardinals. It will be on that list somewhere. It's truly remarkable what we're witnessing right now. By the way, if you just go by wins above replacement, he's on pace this year for a 7-win season.
Dang.
Absurd. It's like one of the best rookie seasons we would have ever seen by a Cardinals player. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, Tom Stillman made some really interesting comments to Jeremy Rutherford on The Athletic earlier today. We'll get to those coming up at 12:30. Better to Forget It is next year on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario, we will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on BK and Ferrario. By the way, shouts to Circus Sports. They wanted to be a part of our Bet It or Forget It each and every week here on BK and Ferrario, and we appreciate them for doing so.
Bet it.
Alex, bet it or forget it. By the end of this offseason, the Nashville Predators will be the new home for Mitch Marner.
Bet it. People that missed it, they just traded Ryan McDonough back to his old team and got a second-round pick in return, which, by the way, what did they trade originally to get Ryan McDonough?
Oh, dude, it was a salary dump.
Yeah, they didn't. So
was it like a fourth-round pick?
So he was traded from Tampa to Nashville for 2 minor league players, and they just got a second-round draft pick in return for Ryan McDonough.
That's bad asset management by Tampa, by the way.
That's terrible. Somebody just tweeted out, too, that, like, Tampa's dead in the water. Like, you've got a couple of good pieces, but your window's over, and now you're just bringing in older players. They needed help on defense, but here's the thing, to your point. Nashville just opened up $6.5 million in getting rid of McDonough, but they do have the Matt Duchene cap hit that hits them from buying him out at $6.5, so it's an even wash. They've got $26 million of cap space to work with this offseason, and they've got a goaltender who Toronto might desperately want to use, say, Saros, that would also shed about $7 million in cap space. So, yeah, I'm going to bet this one. Heavy bet Mitch Marner's a Nashville Predator.
Remember when I wanted Ryan McDonough?
Well, we wanted Ryan McDonough. He's a good defenseman.
The Blues could have got a second-round pick for him instead they're stuck with
You probably could have won something of substance in those couple of years you would have traded for him, too, because you were still somewhat in that window.
It was the last 2 years. So
2 years ago?
2 years ago, maybe.
2 years ago when you were in the playoffs? Sure. That would have been nice to have.
T-Bone?
Would have been nice to have. I would bet this. I think he's going to be a Nashville Predator.
I'm going to forget it.
Suck.
I feel like Nashville's going to do something
Especially
else.
when Stamkos is
I don't
Colorado.
know. I think Nashville should still be trying to contend with Jussi Saros. I think it's crazy that they're trying to trade him.
Yeah, but
I genuinely think it's nuts. But I don't understand it at all.
I think they're doing the same thing that the Blues are doing, where they're looking more about the future because they've got a lot of.
But why? Like they have a good team right now, man.
Well, they do.
They're a really good team.
But they've got a couple of players in their system that are around like Dvorsky's age that are really good prospects.
Yeah, but you've got players right now that are on your roster that can help you contend today. Dude, the Western Conference is wide open.
You know what you can help?
Who knows what's going to happen with Edmonton? Who knows what's going to happen this offseason with Colorado? Like, Nashuskin is not coming back through that door in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but their goaltender, Jussi Saros, didn't help them win in this postseason.
Yeah, they didn't have enough this year.
Like, go get Mitch Marner.
But without Jussi Saros.
You've got what people are saying is one of the best goaltending prospects in the system right now.
I've seen that before.
I have too.
I know what Jussi Saros looks like. I've got Roman Josi that's 33 years old right now. I've got to win with him. I've got Philip Forsberg who's about to turn 30. I got to win with him. I think it's crazy the way that they're operating right now. I think they're missing it. They just signed Ryan O'Reilly. You don't do that to just like float along over the next few years.
I mean, but think
Try to win,
think
man.
about
Go
what
do
happened.
It.
You're president of hockey operations. Easy over there, Shia LaBeouf.
Nashville, dude.
Calm down over there.
Do it.
The thing about it is, like, they called themselves in a rebuild last year. Like, I think they were looking bigger picture than what they were looking at competing, and they surprised themselves. And if you could go get a 27-year-old Mitch Marner at 100 points a season, who's a Selke Trophy finalist for a goaltender that you don't expect to be there in a couple of years.
That's what you're going to do. You're going to settle yourself into a situation where you're winning nothing because you don't have a goalie. I'm serious,
okay,
dude.
Bet it or forget
I know
it.
I sound old school right now, but what they're doing doesn't make any sense. If you don't have a goalie, you can't contend.
But they do have a goalie. They got one of the minors that they believe is good.
That's completely unproven and has never shown it against NHL talent.
Could be better than Saros.
Could be better than Saros. Saros was completely.
You're the guy that loves upside.
Saros was completely unproven when Pecorine was there. They said, well, let's use Saros.
Yeah, well, that worked out, but this one doesn't necessarily that. Just because one guy works out as a prospect doesn't mean the next one will. Hey, you know who worked out here as like an unproven random minor leaguer was Albert Pujols. You know who hasn't worked out to that degree in the last 25 years? Any other Cardinals prospect.
Oh, you were going more.
I mean, he played 2 games this season for Nashville with a .943 save percentage and a 147 goals
Let's
against.
make our future hinge on whether or not the 2 games of sample size for a goalie was worthwhile.
But he's played over 100 games in the AHL. He's 21 21 years old. You drafted him 11th overall. At some point, you got to say, let's see what this kid's got.
Yeah, let's see him as a backup goalie to Yusei Saros. Sorry, I've taken up all of our time. Alex, what do you have
this
for
is a
us
fun
today?
argument right now. Bet it or forget it. I'll stick with hockey here.
Came to 101 ESPN for your Nashville Predators hot takes.
Yeah, well,
today.
over here, that's just because Mitch Marner's going to go there, and I'm going to be sad. Bet it or forget it. In 2 years, when the Blues are starting to open up another window, bet it or forget it, they're going to have less than 3 players that are over the age of 32 on their roster.
At that point, so 2 years
So
from
2
now?
years from now, they're going to have less than 3 players on their roster that are over the age of 32.
Forget it. Braden Shin will still be on the roster. You're not getting rid of that contract. At that point, Colton Parayko will be over that age. Bennington will be over that age. So it'll
will
be,
he be here?
Yeah. I'm gonna say forget
we
it.
have
I think they will
Mark.
have more, and I think they'll sign somebody at that point. If you're contending, I think you'll go into the offseason and you'll be adding guys like Ryan McDonough that are on the back end of their contract. So forget it.
I'd forget it as well. I'd be shocked if they end up with, you said 3 or fewer. Like, that feels hard to accomplish. So, and I think they're going to keep Bennington, and I think they're going to keep Parayko. You've got the Shen contract, and to your point, you can go out and sign somebody else. I would say, and who knows, maybe they re-sign Booch. So, although I don't think he'd get to that point of that part of
Can
his
I yell
contract.
at the text line real quick?
No.
Before we get to yours?
No.
God, can we have our
It'll
own
be super
thoughts?
quick. I promise.
I'm ready to do my bet it or forget it.
People are telling me Bennington was unproven, and that's why the Nashville Predators should go down this path.
Yes, exactly.
Yes!
How many goalies have we seen that were unproven not become Jordan Bennington?
name
the
one.
reason why Bennington, I can't name them because they were forgotten a month later. The reason why
Allen.
Bennington was such a special story is because of how rare it is. Okay, T-Bone, go ahead.
You know what I
Still would do it.
Sorry, we got 4 texts that all said the exact same thing. Bennington was unproven, PK. How'd that work out? Yeah. How'd the other
a tone
5,000
problem.
options of... Sorry.
Tone
Go ahead, T-Bone.
problem.
You're up, bud.
You know what I
Who would
say
have
about
thought Nashville
goalies?
Predators were going to... By the way,
know.
I'm going to bet this one. I'll get into this in our next segment. I think they're going to have 3.
Well, you know what I
He'll
say
explain
about
why
goalies.
coming up next.
Deep tease.
It's easy to let the puck hit you. Guys, bet it or forget it. Michael Ciani will win a Gold Glove in center field this season.
Forget it. He won't have enough games. They're going to eventually put Tommy Edman
We
back
know how
there.
this works.
He's going to fall off. The offense isn't going to be what it is right now.
He's gonna be
and
a fourth
Tommy
outfielder.
Edman will be your
Hold
starting
on,
center fielder.
Hold on. I expect that answer from Ferrario. For the guy that had to do the whole freaking I have an announcement. What
Yeah,
the
you made
hell was
T-Bone and
that?
I think we lost our
I think
jobs.
he's got a role on this team. I think he's the 4th outfielder.
I still believe we lost our
I
jobs.
warned my kids that they weren't going to have dinner in a couple of weeks because I thought I lost my job when you texted us that. And it was for freaking Michael Ciani.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
It's worthwhile.
I would bet it.
My littlest cried. She's like, Daddy, are we not going to be able to eat anymore? And I said, no, Brandon Kiley got me fired.
Give
Working
it
on
time,
another
man. Give it time.
promotion.
Still working on that. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. That was a joke, by the way.
Yeah,
From the
sure it
618.
was.
Bet It
Till
or Forget
January.
It. One of
December.
Shea Theodore or Mitch Marner will be a Blue post-NHL draft. Theodore or Marner will be a Blue. Bet It or Forget
I'd
It.
love to say bet it, but I don't think they're going to pull off the deal, so I'm going to say forget it.
I'm forgetting it as well.
I'm forgetting as well. I think the tease from Tom Stillman might have been they're trading away something.
But you didn't say Kachuk, who's playing for Team USA, who's the same team as Matthew Kessel, who is a St. Louis Blues player.
Isn't that where Kevin Hayes is playing too?
Yes, I forgot about that.
Bet It or Forget It. Burleson will finish this year with more home runs than Goldie or Arenado. How's that race looking right now?
I'm going to say forget that because I think that's also going to fall into playing time. Jordan Walker back, Wilson Contreras back. It's going to be tough to keep him in the lineup.
Burleson today has 5 home runs on the season. Goldie has 4. Arenado still 3 home runs. My God.
Isn't
dude.
it May 21st?
Paul Goldschmidt is slugging .299 still.
Good thing.
How this team is still even competitive is honestly kind of shocking.
Good thing the humidity's here in St. Louis.
That's not helping those guys.
I'm forgetting it. I think one of those guys will finish with more home runs than Burleson, but I'm leaking confidence by the day.
I'm going to bet it. I think Burley can hit like 15. It's going to be close. I think the guy that has the best chance to beat him is Golding. I don't think, for everybody talking about, well, Arenado, he'll get that power swing figured out. He's not going to get it
Yonder
figured out.
Alonso said that in batting practice, he looked like he was about to go off.
Dude,
I don't
on
think he's-
pace this year for 10 home runs on the season.
Yeah.
10.
God.
That's crazy.
Man,
That
how
is
the mighty
What's
have
Golding
fallen.
on pace for? He's got to be like
I think
15.
Jeez.
And I think Burley can
He
get
has
to
one
15.
more home runs. Yeah, about 15.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
It's crazy, man. It happens quick. Happens quick. We talked about that on opening day with Michael Gersh. He said sometimes it just happens and you don't see it coming, and suddenly they have gone down the cliff. And
Well, that right there is probably why
Yes,
the
that's happening.
whole overall game for Nolan Arenado has struggled, because take the power away from somebody who's used to hitting 30
I think
bombs.
he's been great defensively this year. I think this is the best version, in my opinion, defensively that we've seen from Arenado in a Cardinals uniform. It's just the offense. Really, it's just the power. The average is there. The on-base percentage is kind of what you expect from Nolan Arenado, but he doesn't have power this year. It's just gone. Coming up next, Tom Stillman. Interesting comments to Jeremy Rutherford about the Blues' offseason plans. What do we make of these? Alex will tell you his thoughts on it next year on 101 ESPN. It's BK. I got to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion today. Feel your best, look your best. If you've got some unwanted weight that you'd like to lose and you're struggling with it, many people do. You're certainly not alone in that regard. Go to Victory Men's Health today. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. You can check them all out, or you can check them out at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com. If it's weight loss, if it's low testosterone, if you're just not feeling right, go over there today. They can help you out. Your initial visit is going to be just $99. That includes a confidential consultation with one of their medical providers. It'll include comprehensive lab work, PSA testing, testosterone assessment, a body composition analysis, and a customized treatment plan that works for you. They can do all of that for you and so much more over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. HSA eligible, FSA eligible, Victory Men's Health, and victorymenshealth.com.
Terry Hendricks is here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Baltimore Orioles yesterday 6-3. They'll be back in action tonight. 6:45 is first pitch, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
The St. Louis Blues chairman, Tom Stillman, will be in studio tomorrow at 8 o'clock with the opening drive. He will have his full thoughts with the opening drive on what this offseason is going to mean for the St. Louis Blues, where things stand during this retool. He did speak yesterday, Alex, with Jeremy Rutherford, and JR has a full article up right now with his Q&A that he did with Tom Stillman. And I thought there were two quotes that stood out in particular to me about the Blues offseason, Alex, in relation to Tom Stillman. He was asked about the possibility of adding outside help to the current roster. Here's what Tom Stillman had to say. Quote, "It's possible, but it would have to fit with what we're doing. We have a plan. We're going to build for the future. We're going to build to get back into contention, and we're going to do it as painlessly and as quickly as possible. That doesn't necessarily include splashy free agent signings, but getting our players in the appropriate age bracket and getting better." He then continued. This is a different answer to a different question, but it's on the same thought process. "This is always infinitely interesting to me. You don't have to be going out and signing the biggest free agent on the market to have a really productive offseason. You never know when Doug is going to come up with something that surprises me. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It already is. Put it that way." That came from Jeremy Rutherford's piece over on The Athletic earlier today. You can read the full Q&A over there. Alex, this is right in line with what he told you on intermission during one of the Blues games towards the end of the season about how he viewed this offseason. They have a plan. They're sticking to that plan. I would not expect the Blues to be in on very many free agents that are over the age of 27, 28 years old. I think that's kind of their cutoff right now, more or less. If they're going to make one of these surprise additions this offseason, I think the expectation should be that it is coming via trade and that it is somebody 27 years old or younger. How did you feel reading these quotes after hearing what he had to say to you?
Yeah, the first quote that you read about the age group and not being splashy in the free agent market, that to me, like you said, I heard that when he talked at the end of the season. I think we've heard it since the trade deadline. Like the Blues aren't going to be going after any free agents. I think any free agent signings are going to be AHL contracts that have the potential of getting to the NHL. I think the moves are coming via trade, and him saying that it's already interesting. Sure, you can make your tinfoils off of that all you want. I think what he means by that is there's a lot of opportunities in front of us this offseason to make changes if we are able to accomplish it. Just like last offseason, where you had the opportunity to trade a defenseman and bring in a younger defenseman that was in the same time frame as your players in Travis Sanheim. Did it work out? No. But they have the chance in front of them. The no-trade clause hurt them. Do they fall victim to that again? Probably. But there's going to be a lot of opportunities this offseason, at least from what the other teams are going to be looking at doing, to bring in players or try and change the nucleus of this team more towards the age group that you're looking at. It does feel like that this is trending towards the direction of, hey, our focus these next couple of off seasons are finding guys in this time frame, this age group. I teased it with our Bet It or Forget It. Like, I'm looking at this 2 years from now is when they, at least it seems like, are hoping to be in this opening of their window. Whether they're really competing for a cup or they're just starting, that's what they're looking at. If you go through the players that we all view are going to be here, Jake Neighbors is 24 years old. Robert Thomas is 27 years old. Snugger would be 22. Dvorsky, 21. Kyrou, 28. Bolduc, 23. Shen, who I think is going to be here, 34. Toropchenko, 27. Dean, 23. And Otto Stenberg, 21, who would be a part of this team by then. Like, you have one guy who's over the age of 30. Brandon Saad's gone. Depending on what you do with Pavel Buchnevich, he may or may not be here. You're in that time frame. So you're talking about that one center position, and it's going to have to be in that little window of being around 25 to 28 years old in 2 years.
Yeah, I think they're going to look for it feels like they're looking to make a big splash in terms of making that trade and going into that time frame that you're talking about, because I've been skeptical that they are going to look to significantly improve this offseason. I feel like they're working more towards we're probably going to take a step back before we take a step forward. But now I kind of question that a little bit, because it certainly sounds like they want to at least make a splash. Because if you're acquiring somebody, I'm assuming it's probably not a bottom six forward or a bottom pair defenseman that you're looking at in this time frame. I think you're looking for somebody that slots into your top six along with a Dvorsky, or onto that top line wing, to where maybe Dvorsky's winger ends up being Jake Neighbors instead of him being on the top line. Like, it feels like they want to make a splash, but it certainly does feel like it's only coming via the trade front, because he said in that article they don't want to be a cap. Basically said they don't want to be a cap team. If there's something there, they will be, but I took that as they're not going to be. I think it's coming via trade, and I think it's coming into their top six or in their top four defensively.
I also think that's the right way to operate.
Oh, absolutely.
I just think it's the smart way to go about things. If you're in the Blue situation right now, you're not a team that's going to be like truly contending this upcoming year. And unless something kind of blows you out of the water, you should be kind of holding back and saying, we're not going to sign long-term contracts to lock ourselves in to a team that we don't want to have. You know who's doing that right now is Tampa Bay. And they have to, because they're at the back end. They're where Chicago was at the end of their run, where you're just trying to Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh is, where Washington is. When you have these guys that have aged out of their primes, that were a part of championship cores, yeah, you're trying to piece things together. Hell, they're where the Blues were when they signed Braden Shin. And they said, oh, we got to do this, because we need him to be a part of this core while we are in contention for cups, while we're in this 5-year window. And then when you get out of that, Army decided, you know what's best for me to transition out of it, where Tampa Bay is just continuing to throw assets at it. Pittsburgh continuing to throw assets at it because they have Hall of Famers. The Blues didn't. The Blues didn't have a guy like a Sidney Crosby that was a part of their championship contending core that they were trying to continue to win around. They're building around the young guys. So I think this is the exact right approach to have this offseason. It does make me curious about the trade market, because it seems, based on all the reports that we're getting right now, that there will be some interesting young players that could be available via trade. And when I look at this free agent market, Alex, there's like nothing under the age of 28 that could be of interest to the Blues. All of these guys that are available are older. Yeah. And even the ones that are older that are available this offseason, I'm not super interested in any of them for what the Blues are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Reinhart would be the only one that would intrigue me this season, but I got to be honest, the Florida syndrome worries me a little bit, to where you get him and he's not the same player, plus you're paying like $9+ million.
It's going to be so expensive in so many years.
And you're clogging up the spot, essentially, of what you've talked about with Dvorsky. So that's why I asked the question to JR of, at what point do you feel like, hey, it's time to invest, meaning make big trades because we're ready to compete? And I mean, just this offseason, it seems like now is the time to at least try and be active. I mean, when you look in the window of 25 to 27 years old of bringing in a player via trade, Martin Necas, who Elliot Friedman said on his 32 Thoughts podcast, he does not believe they're going to give him a contract, so you would trade him as a restricted free agent, and he's 25 years old. Brady Tkachuk, who once again, the Spit and Chicklets boys are already saying that the rumors are he wants out of Ottawa.
They said it again?
Yeah, they said it again. And just to stick on that team, you've got a defenseman in Jacob Chychrun, who's 25 years old, a defenseman in Thomas Chabot, who's 27 years old, and then Toronto, you got Mitch Marner, who's 27 years old. And these are just a few of the players. There will be more that become available as the offseason moves on and more teams get knocked out of this playoff race. But you've got assets in front of you, whether it be Binnington or Buchnevich or Jordan Kyrou or some of these prospects or your draft pick. You've got these assets in front of you. And if you're talking about a window of 25 to 27 years old, dude, there's some top players that are going to be available this offseason. And if you sit on your hands and say, no, we're not ready to make those moves yet, we want to figure out what we have, next year you might not have that same opportunity.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, the Cardinals are doing what they were signed to do, according to one frame of looking at it. If you think about what Mo said, though, the whole innings eater thing, not so sure that is exactly what's taking place right now. We'll get into that coming up at 1 o'clock. The Juncture next year on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into the juncture. Alex, have you seen any of the cicadas at your house yet?
Yeah, yesterday was day one of the apocalypse at my house.
It's happened here. Have you guys seen
Did
the
you see
parking
Anna's
garage?
picture that she...
Dude.
Oh,
They weren't there this
Hold
morning.
on,
I saw it
Well,
yesterday.
they went away last night.
Dude, what happened?
A lot of them die off. Look at this picture, T-Bone.
I saw it. I saw the photo.
You
It's
saw the photo
insane.
that she tweeted?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Put it up if you can.
let me see if I can
without
find it real
her
quick.
Stuff being in it, but if you can, put it up to the camera so that way the people on YouTube can see this. It's insanity what's taking place around here. So they have not reached St. Charles yet. I live out in St. Charles County. I don't know how or why. So far, we've avoided the apocalypse by my house. My wife will not leave the house for 6 weeks whenever this happens, guys.
I don't blame her.
I'm genuinely worried for her mental health,
Okay,
her
so
mental stability.
Let me see if I can Okay, so going over our YouTube, you can see this. I don't know if I'm putting it on the camera or not,
good.
but it was like you couldn't even see the sign on the garage. It was covered in cicadas.
I mean, thousands of cicadas.
Yeah. So we were out yesterday.
Engulfed the parking garage.
So me and my girls went out. We went and played on our trampoline yesterday, and so they were jumping on the trampoline. And as they are jumping, they're falling from the tree onto the trampoline. And so my daughter is jumping up and down, and then it's just boom, boom. And they're now in her playhouse. We had this little playhouse on the patio. They've gotten in, and they just lay on the ground and flutter. And the real problem for me is they get in the pool. And so what they do in the pool
That sucks.
is they land on their backs with their wings out like they're dead. They play possum on me, and so I'm like, okay, so I scoop them out, and then these little sons of you-know-whats flutter in your face. I had a panic attack the other day, so now I will not be exiting my house for the next 6 weeks.
There were ducks in the complex's pool today that I saw, not cicadas.
It's like a buffet for those ducks.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, they've been in St. Charles for 3 weeks. Somebody else said, yeah, Walden Springs is infested with them. They're in St. Charles, buddy.
I've seen people.
Have they just avoided my house?
Maybe. Do you have a lot of trees around your house?
Dude, tons.
Yeah, well.
I don't know how I've been able to avoid that.
Maybe
I
it's
live
just
right
because
over...
you guys aren't leaving your house.
I mean, it wouldn't be... I don't know.
What do you
I'm
put in
surprised by
earbuds when you walk in?
Oh, yeah, dude, they were so loud yesterday. We had to go in the basement to watch
bad.
the movie they wanted to watch.
I could hear them here when I got here yesterday. It
They
was
were really loud here.
Yeah, and the problem is now I have to cut my grass soon, and I don't want to do it, man.
It's getting bad by me.
What do you mean? What do you do? You have to live with them.
Yeah, I don't think
There's nothing you can do. Believe me, I've had plenty of family and friends call me because I've done pest control. Be like, hey, Alex, could you come spray for cicadas? No, first of all, I don't do that anymore. And second, you can't do anything about it. There's nothing you can do.
What about a flamethrower?
Well, yeah, you can do that.
That's in my front
that
yard.
might be a Mother Nature problem. But they come out, they have a lot of intercourse, and then they just fall and die.
Yeah.
And then you wait 17
for like
years.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
I
And
saw
they
there's
pee a
supposed
lot,
to be-
too.
17 years dead, just laying dormant and underneath
Well,
the
you
ground.
see all of the shells afterwards.
And then for 6 weeks, they get to live and thrive.
And by live, they get to live.
And then they're gone again. They're just dead.
Yeah.
Die off, and it's just game over
And
for
my
them.
wife has been noticing, and I'm sure other people have, trying to think of the right word. They basically they excrete liquids. Like Katie thinks it's like urinating. I don't even know if it's that, but they'll pee on you. You'll get wet from them.
I haven't experienced that yet.
And so every time
I see a million of them because when I go for a walk, I go through a whole area that's got a bunch of trees, and it is loud going through that area.
Oh yeah. So
Somebody on the text line said, BK, I'm a mailman. I live in Columbia, Missouri. Super heavy in some parts of the town. Others, completely non-existent. That's crazy.
it does. It is. Sometimes they're just not very active in places. You'll see occasionally some, but not a lot of them.
Somebody said I used the leaf blower today. I got attacked like a...
Those things come at you, man.
Can you imagine just...
Imagine being the neighbor that sees them then running the other direction.
Dude.
You see your neighbor just running down the
With
street?
the leaf blower going.
I went to take the trash out this morning, and I screamed because one flew right at my face, and I wasn't expecting it. And I walked in, Katie goes, "Did you just scream?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Cicada?" I said, "Yeah."
The thing that I'm worried about, you guys know I'm a runner. And so,
not for 6 weeks, you aren't.
That's the problem. I'm
better use your elliptical that you bought.
You're running Peloton?
Yeah.
You're running through neighborhoods, and sometimes your mouth is open, I'm
would keep
genuine.
your
This is
mouth
a real
closed.
worry for me. I'm legitimately worried that I'm going to eat one. I don't know.
Why do you open your mouth when you
You're
run?
smiling
What do
while
you
you
run
run,
like
yeah.
this?
Yeah, I
Who
can't
does
imagine.
that?
I don't think they're going to fly in your mouth,
the
buddy.
face as you're
Well, you know what I don't do is I don't drive with my windows down. Because they will fly
can't.
in your car.
Yeah.
I've had them where
And
they've
then
gone
what do you
in.
do? You're just smacked
Yeah.
repeatedly with cicadas.
And then you got to just pull over and hope to God you don't hit anybody. They're a nuisance. Let's just put it that way, ladies and gentlemen.
They'll be gone by July 4th, I read the other day.
Unless they haven't gotten here yet, and then you got 6 weeks still, and they're going to be here.
I can confirm they're here. For some reason, they're just avoiding your
Yeah, I
area,
was gonna
which
say,
good
you
for
just
you.
might have lucked out. But yeah, they're here. I mean, they've gotten to me, and they got to us late.
T-Bone mentioned earlier today over on a Twitter account that we follow. They've got the bug zappers that you use.
Oh.
They've got them on sale. I'm going to need to buy like 12 of them if this happens. I know that it doesn't kill the cicadas, but
It
at
really
least
doesn't.
my wife can run into the house.
It actually is
Everybody's
even
gonna think
worse.
it's lights. Like, you know how people have like lights that go up their driveway? Everybody's going to think it's lights at the Kylie house level. What it is a million bug zappers.
The problem
we do
is
have a bug zapper at the corner of we're the corner house of our cul-de-sac. So when people drive by, there's just this blue light that's
gonna be a lot
emanating
of
from
them.
our house.
the problem is that you're not going to kill them. What you're going to do is you're going to knock them down, and they're going to just land on you and then flutter.
All right, coming up in about
close your
15
mouth, I
minutes
guess.
or so, NFL quick hitters, including Rashee Rice, who no longer has to deal with one of his multiple pending allegations against him. That has been dropped. We'll tell you the details on that coming up in 15 minutes. But next, are the Cardinals starters doing what they were signed to do? Depends who you ask, really. We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So the Cardinals, for many people, this offseason, what they decided to do was go out and sign innings eaters. Now, when we talked to Michael Gersh, it is worth noting, this was on Cardinals, the home opener day. He said it wasn't so much about the innings in terms of them getting deep into games as it was them starting 30 games. They wanted to go out there this offseason, the mandate for the organization, sign 3 pitchers that take the ball every 5th day. And they've seemed to get that so far out of Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson. Gibson, by the way, is getting deep into games. He's doing both. He's taking the ball and getting deep. Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn, it's been kind of hit and miss in that regard. And Lance Lynn, honestly, just isn't getting deep into games right now. And this is kind of who he is at this point in his career. He's more of a 5-and-dive guy than he is somebody that's going to get you 7, 8, 9 innings in any given start. Alex, there was a stat that was put out yesterday on how often teams are getting deeper into games with their starting pitcher than the opponent does. So like yesterday, for example, Cardinal starter goes 5 2/3. How long did the Oriole starter go? Does he go 6 innings or more? If yes, then their starter went deeper into that game than the Cardinal starter did, right? That makes sense to you?
Sounds like advanced analytics to me.
It seems pretty bare, basic, not analytics at all.
Sounds like analytics.
The Cardinals, 1 out of every 3 games so far this year, 33%. Their starter goes deeper in that game than their opponent's starter does. That is among the 5 worst in Major League Baseball in that regard so far this year. The only teams that are getting their starter going deeper into games than their opponent less often than the Cardinals, Milwaukee, surprisingly enough, Miami, the Chicago White Sox, and the Oakland Athletics.
Miami
Those
just
are the
says
4 teams.
Miami just says, screw it, we're already losing, so you stay in the entirety of the game.
Alex, what do you make of this? Do you believe, after hearing this, after watching the games, we've seen now 7 weeks of Cardinals baseball, are the Cardinal starters doing what they were brought here to do right now?
I mean, I think so, because the guys you brought in were here to give you consistency, and they give you consistency. How many starts has Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and Sonny Gray missed? 3 at the beginning of the season. Sonny Gray was injured, and that's been it. That's what they were signed here to do, to be available for this team every single day. I don't really care as much about the going deeper into the games than the opponent, because I think situationally that dictates an awful lot. What's impressive is that the Cardinals have done that 33% of the time this season. And if you think about it, all of their games, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6, have been like 1-run games where the Cardinals have been in it, and the Cardinals are still keeping their starters in longer than the other team. Their offense isn't kicking the other team out. It's just they're out pitching the other side. So I don't care as much about that. What I cared about is what Steven Matz and your 5th starter have been unable to provide you this season, and that's been being available every 5th day, and you got that from your 3 signings this offseason.
Yeah, I think the way that they drew it up, whether you want to listen to how Mode defined it of we need innings eaters, or how kind of Gersh said it of we need guys that just post, I think it's worked. Now, if you're going on the innings eating side, I think what's happened is, for that case, is Michaelis hasn't lived up to what they thought he was going to be. Because really, he's the only one that hasn't. Like, you knew Matz wasn't going to be a guy that was going to eat innings, and whoever filled into his spot. And they probably knew Lynn was going to be more of a 5-and-dive guy, just based on where he's at in his career. The guy you were expecting more out of in that role would have been Michaelis. But I think it's worked out, because the number one reason they were brought here outside of posting every day was, can you keep us in ball games? And that's what they've done, to Alex's point. Every baseball game when the starters leave, you're typically in it. You've had a couple of outings where they're like, Lynn has 1 rough inning, or Gibson has one rough inning, or Gray has had 1 or 2 recently. But for the most part, when you have your starters go out there, they're posting every day, they're giving you that start, and they're going 5-6 innings, and they're keeping you in the ball game. And with how good the Cardinals bullpen is, then you can hand things over to their pen. Now, when they get into June, they're probably going to need more innings just as a whole, because they don't have as many built-in off days. But I think for the most part right now, they've done their job, in my opinion.
I think Kyle Gibson has done everything that the Cardinals asked him to do. I think Sonny Gray has done everything that the Cardinals asked him to do. Lance Lynn, I'm kind of in the middle. Not totally sure exactly if this is what they were hoping for or not. Effectiveness, he's pretty much been the guy that you hoped he would be. I would think they would have probably wanted a little more depth out of him. He's gone 5 innings like every time he started. He has 1 game so far this year of at least 6 innings. 1. I think they would have hoped for more there. And the guy that's really not doing what was expected is Miles Michaelis. He's just not giving you the depth that you need out of him, man. This is a guy that his entire value to you as a team is eating innings. And so far this year, he started 10 games and he's given you 53 innings. He's a third of the way through his season, and he's on pace for 120-ish innings this year. That's not good enough out of Miles Mikolas. He's not been effective, 5.7 ERA. He's not getting you deep into games, 5 innings per start. When you combine those two things, that's not good enough by him. So I think he's not giving you what you needed. Lance Lynn, I think, is up for debate going one way or the other. I think he's been more effective than most would have expected this year, but he's not going deep into games like at all. He's gone more than 5 innings just that one time. Those would be the two that I think could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Lance Lynn because I didn't have a whole lot of expectations, and the fact that he's been available for you has been better in my eyes than what I thought. You were upgrading from what you had last year, and last year was just inconsistency. I completely forgot about Miles Mikolas when we were talking there at the beginning, which goes to show you he hasn't provided enough. I think you needed not only just starts from him, but you needed quality innings from him to where he was giving you a little bit more distance into games. He and Sonny Gray, I looked at to where when you started, I need you every 5th day, and I need 6 innings from you. The other guys I didn't expect it.
And Sonny's doing that. Yeah. Sonny has done his job. I know last night it finished a little weird. He's got 5 2/3.
Kind of wanted out last night.
But overall,
he didn't want to do what he was brought in for.
He's gone at least 6 innings 5 times for you, and some of those was on a pitch count. Pretty damn impressive, all things considered. And in those starts in which he goes at least 6 innings, 0, 2, 1, 0, 5 earned runs. That's what you signed him to do. Yeah, there's one outlier performance there against the Angels where it didn't go as you expected it to, but they still found a way to win that game. He's giving you everything you could have asked for and then some. The Lance Lynn thing is weird. Where do you stand on him?
I think that it was fair to have expectations of him being a 5 and dive. Like, I think he's coming in and done his job because, I mean, you look at last year, he led the league in home runs that do matter.
Not to BK.
And the fact of the matter that he had like a 6 ERA, 5 ERA, what that told me was, hey, man, you're best served of him just getting 5 innings and get him the hell out of the baseball game as soon as possible. And if you look at kind of like just based on what you've seen from his performances, there's a lot of innings where it's like, oh, this could really get out of hand on him quickly. Like, there's been a couple times where it felt like Lynn should have left the game allowing 6 runs, and he doesn't because he has to fight through one inning, does his job, goes 5 and hands it off to their bullpen. And their bullpen's good enough. Like, if he's doing 5 and dive and Mikolas is doing 5 and dive, then that would be fine. The problem is you've got that 5th starter spot currently where you have to turn to that bullpen. So that's where I would say Mikolas is the one that's disappointing to me. And I know he wasn't an addition in the offseason, but he's the one that's been disappointing in my opinion.
I also think, like, what you can say from this as well with the new guys, I don't want to hear about Ollie taking his guys out early anymore. Ollie's been willing to stick with some of these guys longer than what I think a lot of fans would have expected going into the season. It's not about, once again, I said this all year last year and I got laughed at because Ollie's too new school and he doesn't go by his gut or anything like that. Ollie's willing to leave his starter out there, but the starter has to earn that trust. Mikolas has not earned that trust. We saw that over the weekend. Sonny Gray has earned that trust multiple times. Kyle Gibson, that dude is just going to go out there, throw 100 pitches, and see how far he can get into the game in doing so. It depends on how much he trusts you. Montgomery, you trusted him last year. He left him in a lot of games longer than what you otherwise would have expected. He just hasn't had enough starters that you can trust over the last couple of seasons. Lance Lynn, for example, doesn't. He throws a bunch of pitches in each individual inning, so he doesn't get as deep into games.
Yeah, I would be curious to know, like, I'm sure there's a way to find this, but how many starts from the Cardinal starters do you get at least 5 innings? You know, because there's a lot of, like, Skip had an issue that we saw where his starter had a rough outing, but a lot of starters, like you saw the Baltimore starter last night, he only went, 4 innings? Mm-hmm. That's not good enough. But at least with the Cardinals, like, even if Gibson does have a rough outing, you can pretty much pencil in you're going to get 5 innings from 5 to 6 innings, and you're going to be able to save some of your bullpen.
The Cardinals have played so far this year 47 games. How many times do you think they've gone at least 5 innings?
So I know Libby hasn't done it in, how many starts has he had? 3? I'm going to go...
Mats didn't do it other than like once.
I forgot about him. I'm going to go... What was the number you said? How many starts?
45.
The Cardinals have had 47 games so far this year, so 47 starts.
Mats was good a couple. I'll go 6 starts in which they didn't get 5 innings or more.
I'll say a little more than that, 9.
13. 13 so far this season. I think Mikolas has a couple in there. Mats has a couple in there. I'd have to check on who the others are, but
every one of Liberators.
13 starts this year that went less than 5 innings for the Cardinals. They are actually once again towards the bottom in that regard, unfortunately.
Man, boy, we talked about this last week. The pitching feels so much better. It's actually not. You know what? I changed my mind. Offseason failed. These guys aren't doing their job. The rotation sucks. We need to go get another pitcher.
No, what's funny about it is that I'll signal 2 out. that you signed, Gibson and Gray, have been awesome. It's been the guys that were on the roster that you banked on, they're the ones that have stunk. Matz and Michaelis.
I do want to correct something earlier. I did some bad math on the air. That's my apologies. I said Miles Michaelis right now is 50 innings. We're about a third of the way through the season for him. I said it would be 120. That's obviously incorrect. It would be 150 is what he's on pace for this year. I don't know how I got to 120. I had a glitch on the air. I apologize. That's on me. I misspoke. Bad math by me. Still, 150 innings from Miles Michaelis is not what you're looking for from him.
And you're the analytics guy.
Yeah. You need him to be at 180 plus. If he's below that, something has gone horribly awry for you this year.
You should be 200 with him.
Yeah, I mean, like, for sure.
Especially when you had Jordan Montgomery here, who was a 200 guy for you.
All right, coming up next, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, Circa Sports is the place where I'm winning the most money possible in the state of Illinois. I've downloaded the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I've downloaded DraftKings. I'm getting better odds on Circa Sports, and that is where I place my bets. I'm going to the NBA. I've got the Eastern and Western Conference Finals ready to go. Celtics right now, if I go over to the FanDuel Sportsbook, they are minus 1,100 against T-Bone's Pacers. That's just too much. I'm not getting the best odds possible. Minus 900. Over on Circa, much better odds. I also like the Mavericks to upset the Timberwolves in this series, plus 160 over on Circa on the FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 145. If I parlay those two things together, Celtics and Mavs to win their respective series, meet in the NBA Finals, $100 wager wins $164 over on FanDuel. Wins $190 on Circa. I'm betting on Circa.
This is why you need to use the Circa Sports Illinois app to make sure you're making the most money possible. Just forget about my parlay yesterday. I was one leg off, but I was going to give you all the money on it. Keep it going. Make those big bets. And come on, hang out with us on Friday and Saturday this weekend at Max and Alton to watch Cards and Cubs. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Everything's fine in Chiefs land, Alex. Rashee Rice.
I know that's not true.
Sounds like he is going to have these charges dropped against him.
Oh!
According to Pro Football Talk, the cameraman that charged him with assault.
The one that he lured into an alley so he could knock him out?
It was a, quote, misunderstanding. And the cameraman would like to drop all charges against Rashee Rice.
That's called a side payout. That's called a, hey, man, how much do I need to give you?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. This is all allegedly.
Alex, now there's just a one charge for him driving 115 miles per hour.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not bad. He was just watching Fast and the Furious on his car while he was driving. This is a family business.
So we're all good in Kansas City.
Absolutely.
Now there's only one issue that we got to get taken care of with him. 6 to 8 weeks. We'll be good to go. No harm, no foul.
Good.
Well, a lot of harm, unfortunately.
And
he
probably
caused
a lot
all
of
it,
foul play.
But wanted to update people. There's only one charge pending now against Rashee Rice.
Can't wait for everyone to watch him make the game-winning catch in the Super Bowl when they three-peat and nobody remember what Rashee Rice did at the beginning of the season this year.
Right.
That's how the NFL goes.
Alex, ESPN.com had their analytics team, the nerdy numbers guys.
BK got real excited. That's why we're doing quick hitters today.
They put together their projections on what the rookie quarterbacks will do this season for their respective teams, all right? Caleb Williams. I want to hear over or under from you on whether or not they'll go over or under these numbers, T-Bone. Caleb Williams, 3,500 passing yards, 23 passing touchdowns.
Ooh.
They've got him doing this in 15 starts for the Bears.
Man.
3,500 passing yards, 23 touchdowns.
I think I would take the under.
Oh.
But I do think it's going to be closer to that than people will give him credit for. I just don't know if
Geno Smith threw for roughly 3,600 passing yards last year.
That's what I was looking at. Where would that fall in this range?
About 20th.
And I mean, Gardner Minshew.
I mean, he's got his weapons. Like, you've got the weapons to throw to. I just look at the schedule, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to do that all season long. Like, you've got 2 matchups with Detroit. You've got a matchup against San Francisco. You got a matchup against the Rams. That'll be an easy one for him. The Titans, the Colts. I think he'll be close to it, but I don't think you're going to have those exact numbers.
I would take over on the yards and under on the touchdowns.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Because you said the touchdown number was what?
23.
Yeah, and
that would have been top 12 in the NFL last year.
Yeah.
That's 3,500 feels like a lot for me too, though.
17 games. That's basically like 200. And I did math on the air in the last segment. It didn't go well for me. A little more than 200 yards per game. Let's pick that.
Add a couple. I'm kind of with you. I would take the under on the the over on the passing yards. Like, he could throw more than what's his name, Geno Smith did. But the touchdowns one's the one where it kind of pauses me because you said top 12. So I would agree with you. I would take over on yards, under on passing TDs.
All right, we'll do one other. Which other quarterback do you want to get to? McCarthy, Daniels, May, or Nix in terms of the projections?
I don't know if
I want to hear Daniels.
I want to hear McCarthy and Daniels.
All right, we'll do the next two then. J.J. McCarthy, 3,500 passing yards, 19 passing touchdowns. They've got him listed for 14 starts. 3,500 passing, 19 touchdowns.
I would take the under on passing yards and under on touchdowns.
I would too.
I would take over and over.
Really?
I will.
Well, you like McCarthy. I think he's trash.
I don't love McCarthy. I think he's going into one of the best situations that we've seen from a rookie quarterback in recent memory.
I think you got to be talented to go for that
I think
kind
you
of
have to be
yardage
good.
and touchdown passes.
I mean, last year, Geno Smith threw for more than that. Like Derek Carr. Derek Carr's perfect as an example. Derek Carr last year with the Saints threw for 3,900 yards and 25 touchdowns. I think he could have a similar kind of season with the Minnesota Vikings this year that Derek Carr had with the Saints.
I don't, because I think Carr's at least...
Sam Howell threw for 3,900 yards and 21 touchdowns last year with Washington.
Yeah, but Sam Howell at the end of the season was just heaving the ball downfield 70 yards every time.
He threw 600 times last year, and I don't know that that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. I would take the under on that.
It helps when you've got a guy in Justin Jefferson that I expect to have 1,500 yards this year or more. You know, like that's going to get him half of the yardage that I expect.
Yeah, the other concern for me is I don't know if he's playing right away. That's the thing. It's like I could see where they go to Sam Darnold and let him ride for like 5 weeks and then finally bring in J.J. McCarthy.
Or if he struggles at the beginning of the season, they go away from him and then go back to him. Yeah, I don't see it. I would take the under on both on that one.
I would too.
You wanted Daniels?
Yeah, I was curious about Daniels.
3,400 passing yards, 16 touchdowns.
I mean, I think that's probably
under for me.
He doesn't have anybody to throw to.
I think he's going to run for 1,000.
That's the thing is like I could see where he has. What did Justin Fields do in his first like full season? Because I could see
in terms of passing yardage.
Yeah, because I could see where he does something like that because he didn't have great weapons.
As a rookie, 12 games, 1,800 passing yards, 7 touchdowns in his first full season. 2,200 passing, 17 touchdowns.
I could see something like that.
So I would take the under on both.
Yeah, that I would go under as well. Do you saw Fields' numbers up there? What was his rushing yards?
1,100.
Yeah, I definitely think
Jaden Daniels is going to be Justin Fields 2.0.
Yeah, that's probably the comp right there for me for his rookie season.
All right, you get one rookie wide receiver in terms of the numbers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman, or Rome Odunze. Who do you want to hear?
Who's Odunze with again?
Chicago.
I don't really want to hear him.
Give me Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, New York Giants, formerly of LSU. They have him projected for 1,000 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns.
I would take the over.
Wow.
Because I think that's all they're going to be throwing to.
That's all
Daniel Jones is going to be going to.
Yeah, the problem is can Jones get him the ball?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot of yards after catch, though.
Yeah, I would take over on touchdowns because I can see where he's like the number one target. Yards would be close because I have no faith in them getting the ball from Daniel Jones. But, hey, there's rumors Drew Lock could win that job, and I've seen Drew Lock sling the football around.
I am curious,
I would take over.
What's Keon Coleman? I know you said only one, but I am curious.
You guys keep going over. 810 yards and 5 touchdowns for
I would take the over on those.
Under.
I think I'd go under as well.
Who else is
I think he's going to have a couple of games where he goes for like 120, and then most of the weeks you see him and you're like, why do I have him on my fantasy team? He had 20 yards this week, 1 target. What are we doing here? I think that's what it's going to be like with him.
I did that a lot with a lot of players last year.
Sure you did. All right, last one here. They have 1 running back projected for more than 500 yards this season in terms of the rookie class. That makes Jonathan sense. Brooks, the running back for the Carolina Panthers.
He's from Texas, right?
Texas kid. Guy. They have him projected for 870 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's going to make fantasy drafts really interesting this year.
Who's their other running back? Didn't they...
Do they still have
Miles
Chuba
Sanders?
Hubbard?
They have Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders.
Oh, yeah. I would take the under on those.
I think it all depends on health for him. He's got the ACL issue that he's coming back from. I would take the over if he's truly healthy. I think he's going to get the vast majority of the carries.
Over both of those guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, trust me, I had both those guys on my fantasy team last year.
I guess that's true.
Both those guys were terrible
I felt like they rode Chuba Hubbard pretty far last year.
He had like the only reason I know is because he was on my team. He had like a 4-week stretch where it was like, whoa, this guy's actually a legitimate running back. And then it fell off again quickly. So if he's healthy, I can see where it probably takes like 3-4 weeks before he finally starts really taking on the bulk, but I would take the over on it.
Blake Corum, your boy. Michigan running back.
Oh, yeah.
Over under 470 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Over. Take him in all of your fantasy drafts this year. That's my guy.
Don't do that. I'd go under on...
I'd go under on... He's a better version of Kyren Williams. He's going to get all of the rushing yards. Kyren Williams come in on 3rd down.
Don't listen to BK. He's lost every fantasy football league the last 3 years.
Hasn't even made the playoffs.
Yeah. Hey, that's not true.
Last place.
I am the defending
last year was a bad year by me.
champ. Back-to-back champ. Don't do that, folks.
Wonder why it was absolutely do that. That run. You know how it is with Sean McVay. You should check this. Kyren Williams was a guy that came in and nobody wanted him on their fantasy team.
Do you even watch the games, T-Bone?
Everybody was talking about Darrell Henderson as the guy that you wanted from the Rams backfield.
That was wrong. I knew that one.
Once he latches onto one guy, They get all of the carries in LA, and I think that guy this year is going to be Blake Corum. They drafted him in the 3rd round, man. You don't just like blow a pick on that guy that early to not give him the
Sean
football.
McVay, yeah. If it's an offensive weapon, Sean McVay's like, yeah, please. Yeah, I want that. Remember, they almost traded for Brock bleeping Bowers.
I think Blake Corum has a better chance of leading all rookies in rushing this year than finishing 2nd on the Rams.
Man,
no,
I can't wait to
I
play
think
you
he'll
in
get
fantasy.
1,000 yards rushing.
I can't wait to play you in fantasy this year.
Well, I
Knows
gotta
that
get
better,
odds.
forget it.
I mean, it would be like a significant in my favor odds, like 2-to-1 odds.
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to get 1,000 yards.
We'll
I don't
bet,
think he's
we'll
gonna be
bet
the
a
number one
bottle
guy.
of whiskey. You get
Okay.
something lower shelf, I get something top shelf.
That's fair.
If I win.
Wait, as long as Top Shelf's not like $1,000.
No, it would be like a $50 bottle.
Okay, that's fair. And I get like,
$25, Elijah Craig or something.
okay.
I just had flashbacks of this weekend when you said whiskey. I'm out.
By the way, they have the over-under at Jaden Daniels, 570 rushing yards. That seems absurd to me.
Yeah, I would take the
I
over
think
on
it's
that one.
way over on that.
Did they have, I'm curious because I brought him up. Did they have projections for Brock Bowers? 'Cause he's someone that I find fascinating because we've talked about tight ends and
They
they
do
typically
not
don't
have
get the.
Brock Bowers.
Oh, the dude, the coin flip, huh?
Yeah.
Coin
Only
flipper.
6 tight ends in NFL history have produced more than 750 receiving yards as a rookie, though.
Yeah, I would take
2
the
of
under
those
on
were in the
that.
past decade with Kyle Pitts and Sam Laporta.
Kyle
They
Pitts
don't
did that
have
his
his
rookie
over-under.
year?
He
Kyle
did. He
Pitts
had
was-
1,000 yards as a rookie.
He was a wide receiver his
Believe it
rookie
or not.
year.
Who was his quarterback that year? Would that have been the last year of Ryan? It might have.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it would have
And then
been.
they traded Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I can see how
I'd
it
have to check
happened. You should check that.
I should check that. I will not be doing that. Coming up in
Son of a
15
gun.
minutes, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind, but next, Alec Burleson is looking like a bat that the Cardinals have failed to produce in recent years. What can he be long-term for the Cardinals? Talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you with my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, her and her team over at the Bibb Agency. And Tracy, I heard that there are storms coming in tonight, and there are some storms over these last couple of weeks. The importance of home insurance with these storms on the horizon. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And we've been talking to a lot of people about their home insurance needs right now, especially because they have been surprised by the deductibles that their insurance companies have on them. We are not one of the companies that have changed deductibles. We can still do something as low as $1,000 or a $500 deductible. Plus, the other thing that we do that's a lot different, and a lot of our clients are experiencing that right now, if you've been hit by both a hailstorm that damaged your car and it damaged your home and you have both policies with us, we're waiving one of those deductibles. So it's a great thing to be able to call back our clients and say, you know what, we're giving you your deductible money back because you were hit by both things were damaged in that storm, so let's give you some money back.
Get with the insurance agent that's taking care of you, and that's Tracy and her team. Give her a call today. Ask for a free non-committal quote. Mention you heard us talk about it on BK and Ferrario, and she'll take it from there. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in good hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight after they took Game 1 versus Baltimore 6-3 last night. Tonight, 6:45 first pitch, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, independent standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alec Burleson looks like one hell of a baseball player right now. Batting over 300 on the season. He has 5 home runs already so far this year. This is the player that they sold us on, Alex. Last year, you saw a lot of the bad luck. The expected numbers were always there, but the actual numbers never seemed to show up. Well, we're seeing that this year. The results are following what the expected numbers suggest. His expected batting average, 295. Actual batting average, 301. That's the kind of hitter that we were hoping for. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I am Brandon Kiley. Over on Baseball Savant, T-Bone, you talk about this all the time. They have the similar batters in terms of the profile of hitter that you've got. This year, Alec Burleson's most similar batters are Alec Bohm, Alex Verdugo, Brendan Donovan, Adley Rutschman, and Connor Wong. Those are guys that you want to be compared to as a hitter. And this is 2023 Brendan Donovan, which was a really good version of him as a hitter. I want to take out Alex Verdugo from that list, Alex, because he is a guy that is a low strikeout player. Hits for a lot of average, doesn't get on base a ton, never been a big guy in terms of walking, but does hit for a little bit of pop. Not a ton, 15 home runs-ish per season, but a little bit of pop. He's had other issues defensively and attitude, honestly, but in terms of the actual on-field product as a hitter, he's been pretty solid. I'm curious. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running as well at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. If I told you that as a hitter, Alex Verdugo is the comparison that we'll see over the next 5 years or so for Alec Burleson, how do you feel about that, Alex?
I'd say that's a win. I'd say that's a success for the Cardinals because what we're seeing right now from him is one of those players that we've talked so much about in terms of the Cardinals' devil magic of finding guys and turning them into reliable bats. And now Burleson's coming up with big hits. He's got big plays at the plate. He is starting to provide a lot more confidence in a batter than what I originally thought he was there for you with. So if you're telling me I could be an Alex Verdugo, I would take that every day of the week because I think that's a necessity for this team. Somebody that gets on base, has the opportunity to slug, but is clutch for this Cardinals team. I said it felt a lot like, at least watching him last night over in these last couple of weeks, he feels a lot like what Matt Adams felt like in those first 6 years with the Cardinals, and we looked at it. Basically, you're talking about the same person, just with less pop on the Verdugo side.
I think he's Matt Adams 2.0.
Yeah.
I think it's a great comparison.
And you need that. I mean, especially if Goldie is this, that, to me, is your future first baseman. And you need that type of player as a complementary piece to what we talked earlier with a Masyn, Winn, and a Jordan Walker being those pillars. You need these types of players to develop.
Yeah, and I think this kind of batter profile can be a guy that can be almost like a Swiss Army knife in your lineup. And what I mean by that isn't by the position, but when Burleson's playing well, you could hit him in the 2-hole. Right now, he's playing really well. If it weren't for Nootbaar and Donovan heating up, the Cardinals should absolutely consider the idea of him being in that 2 spot of the order. Typically, what you would want is him to be where he is currently, which is he's hitting 5th. He's hitting behind the heart of the order because he's hitting for average. So your hope is he can drive in runs. He could hit in the 6th spot, which is also kind of in that same territory where you're talking about. And if worst case scenario, you had to put him in the 3-hole, for example, like the Cardinals did with Matt Adams in his time here, you could have success with that. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife where you typically would want him to hit 5, 6 for you. But if your offense is struggling, you can move him up in the order because he's such a high-contact guy that can just put the ball in play and either be a guy that gets on base or be a guy that can help move runners over or drive in runs.
I am curious. What does it mean that you have so many left-handed bats right now that are young? Scott is eventually going to be your everyday starting center fielder. That's the expectation, at least. You have Lars Nootbaar as one of your corner outfielders right now. You've got Alec Burleson. You've got Nolan Gorman. You've got Brendan Donovan. This is a conversation for later on, but I think Alec Burleson is hitting his way into the future of the Cardinals. What I mean by that is, like, I don't think you have a future first baseman if it's not Alec Burleson currently in the organization. He's got to be the guy if you're going to go internal. If you're going external, fine. Like, go get Pete Alonso or go get some other guy that can hit 270 for you with 15 home runs, whatever. Those guys are a dime a dozen with bad defense at first base. You can figure it out. I prefer going the cheap, cost-controlled, young,
you would mow
homegrown option, so that way I can spend that money elsewhere. I'm still spending the money, but I'm spending it elsewhere as opposed to having to go out and get somebody new for first base. I do think Burleson's development, if this is real, if what we're seeing will sustain over the long haul, it does open up some flexibility to trade one of, honestly, Gorman, Donovan, or Nootbaar. And it's probably one of Nootbaar or Brendan Donovan.
Especially if Walker's your outfielder and Scott's your outfielder, you don't need all of them if depending on Tommy Edman. And like,
I think Nootbaar's probably the one that ends up getting dealt because he has the most value. He's good defensively. He's young. He has that on base percentage. He has a little bit of slug, but you need him to play better than he has this year to be able to do that long term. This is looking down the road.
You've got to trade one of them because I just don't think you're going to need every one of these left-handed bats. And what you're going to need, obviously we're seeing it right now, is somebody else to be in the top echelon of your starting pitching rotation.
We also, guys, we have a lot of people that still continue to say, why can't Walker be the future first baseman? He's not a first baseman. He's never played there. We saw how long it took for him to transition to right field. Guys, Walker's a more than passable right fielder now. He's actually pretty good out there, I would say. Yeah. He's not elite by any stretch, but he's more than capable of playing right field. You don't move a guy from right to first if you don't have to. 10 years from now, could Walker be your future first baseman then? Sure, yeah. As his body continues to grow, he gets a little older, he loses some of his athleticism, but he's got a good arm, he's super athletic, and now he's getting better reads, even if they're not great, on the ball. It's a guy I keep out there. Yeah. Burleson is the one that you move, because Burley has already shown an ability to play first base, and he's pretty decent at it. I wouldn't say he's elite by any stretch, but he's solid. He's got the footwork down. I would much rather go with him.
He doesn't have the range in the outfield as Walker does, because I think Burley's...
Walker's got an arm.
Yeah, well, not just that, because Burley's got an arm. Burley's got a cannon because he was a former pitcher, but he doesn't have the range because he's just not as fast. You know, you think about Jordan Walker, you're thinking about a guy that's got some pretty good sprint speed. They got down the time, or not the timing, the reaction and the jump that he gets in the outfield this offseason toward... That's what's made him better. It's not about the arm. The arm didn't really play into how he played defensively. It was he getting the jumps that he needed to on the ball? And with his speed, he also has a little bit of wiggle room there as well. Burley doesn't have that. Burley has to be the guy that gets the jump, and he's faster than I think he gets credit for, but he's not as fast as Jordan Walker. So what do? You pull that guy and put him in on the infield, to your point.
I think there's two other guys before
it's the last resort. You don't move anybody to first base unless you have no other options.
That's what I was going to say. There's two other guys before I even talk Jordan Walker at first base. It would be Burleson and it would be Wilson Contreras.
And mostly Contreras has been good enough defensively this year that I'm going to keep him there,
I just mean long-term, if Herrera continues to get better, then you have two guys in there. His would be taking
some of the pressure off of his knees, for example.
Yeah.
Like you saw the Giants do that with, like, Posey. Yeah. Same with Joe Mauer.
But those two would be my first... I wouldn't even discuss Jordan Walker until I was told no by both of those that they're not going to be my first baseman.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there will probably come a point in time in which that is a more than reasonable conversation to have, is moving Jordan Walker to first base. I just don't think that's right now. I think Alec Burleson is the guy that you probably put there. What we've seen from him, we talk so much about guys going elsewhere and having success. It is really refreshing to see Masyn Winn and Alec Burleson, after real struggles last season, turn it around. Because we talk a lot about guys not being able to hit the ground running, and then they have these sophomore slumps and all this. It appears the opposite is taking place. The opposite is true for Burleson and Masyn Winn, where the second year, they're going on the incline, not the decline. If we're going to criticize them for the vice versa, we got to give them a little bit of credit when it goes their direction. So credit to the players, credit to the organization for getting things back on track with both Burleson and with Masyn Winn. We'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Coming up on Friday and Saturday, you've got an opportunity to hang out with me, Alex, and T-Bone, depending on who you like more between me and T-Bone. It'll determine which day you go out there. I will be there on Friday night. T-Bone will be there on Saturday. Max in downtown Alton, Illinois. T-Bone might even show up on Friday. We'll see. We'll see if he's willing to come on out there to hang out with us as well.
Are you going to be there on Friday?
I will.
T-Bone won't be there.
I don't like BK enough.
Well, I'll be there Friday. T-Bone will be there Saturday then.
You should probably check that.
The biggest rivalry in baseball is back. Chicago takes on St. Louis on the baseball diamond. You can come enjoy complimentary, that's right, complimentary food at Max in downtown Alton. Plus, download and fund the Circus Sports Illinois app to receive exclusive merchandise. It's all Friday and Saturday, 5 to 7 on Friday, 4 to 6 on Saturday. T-Bone and Alex will be there on Saturday. I'll be there on Friday night. All the details can be found at 101ESPN.com. All right, Alex, we got to finish out today's show by getting back to the Cardinals where we started today. I am not coming on here and saying, choo-choo, all aboard the Cardinals train, choo-choo.
The Cardinals are coming. The Cardinals are coming.
I'm not there. They have my curiosity, though. If they continue doing this over the next 5 days, they'll have my attention. I need to see more out of them. But what we have seen over the last 8 games, 6-2 overall, top 5 offense in Major League Baseball, they're starting to look like the team that I thought they could be coming into the season. It's interesting to me. It's fun to watch. It's a better brand of baseball. I know a couple of bad plays last night by Masyn Winn, couple of errors in the game against Boston on Sunday, just a weird performance overall in that one. But if you just, big picture, right, 30,000-foot view, this is looking like a different team than most of what we saw the first 6 weeks of the season, but it's still such a small sample size. I'm not jumping all the way back on board yet. Where are you at right now?
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. Like you're starting to bring me back on board with this Cardinals team from what you've been producing, mostly because your bats are coming alive. You're seeing Nootbaar hit, Masyn Winn's coming up in a big spot. You're getting Alec Burleson contributing, Michael Ciani's contributing. Everybody that's not Goldie and Arenado is coming up with big hits for this team, which is great. I still need to see your 2 big bats actually come through for me to believe that this is sustainable. But I can't deny you winning a series against Boston, even though you were kind of gifted the series against the Angels. You still got the job done, and then you just beat a team that everybody views as a World Series contender. I look at that and say you are continuing to prove that you're building on the success that you just showed. You got to continue it, though. I still say that it's the Orioles series and the Cubs series for me to look at it and say, if you just won those 2 on top of beating the Red Sox and the Angels, that's 4 straight series that you won. And to me, that is something that I can build confidence in rather than just this flash and pan where it was, boom, we're good, and then we fall off. Boom, good, fall off. You got to string them together.
Yeah, I think by the time you get to the end of the Cubs series, if you're continuing to play well, I can at least convince myself of, hey, they're not dead yet. You know, they were able to avoid the nail in the coffin and they can remain in the race, which right now, looking at the NL wild card race, is easy to do. But I think you can at least see some hope for them. For anybody to buy back in, I think you've got to see it from the middle of the order. You got to see it from Goldie and Arenado. Otherwise, you're just going to have this power outage in the middle of the order, which no baseball team can survive anymore. Modern baseball is not built on single run scores. It's built on slug, baby, slug. So that's what they need to start seeing, and they've got to start seeing it from the guys that are paid the most on the team and sit in the middle of that order at 3 and 4.
Have you seen what Goldie's done this month?
He looks better. I know his numbers are no.
I thought Jim Edmonds fixed them. That's what I was told.
So far this month, batting 165 with a 240 on base and a 269 slugging percentage. That's quote-unquote good for a 512 OPS, 27 strikeouts, and 67 at-bats. It's just...
Like I said, it looks bad.
I did hear you say that.
I do think it's felt better, but I think a lot of that is just he's hit 2 home runs this month. And when you see the big home runs from him, you're like, oh, okay, that's Paul Goldschmidt. That's the guy that I remember. And I think it's been a little better in the last, 8 games, super small sample size. But again, last night, no real production there. And Nolan Arenado, it's just more of the same. He's hitting for average, but it is still a lack of power. 405 slugging percentage so far in the month of May as well. I think it might be a year where Arenado's not going to slug. And I don't really know if that's something they can overcome long term. They probably could if Goldie gets back to something close to MVP form, or at least close to his career norms. But that's going to be a massive hole in the middle of your order. If Arenado is more of an average, no power, that's like late career Yachty stuff, where you've got him as like a 5 or a 6 hole hitter, and for a really good team, not a cleanup guy. Eventually, you'll probably have to flip him and Burleson. Well, I don't know if that's something that they're going to be willing to do.
I was just about to ask you this question because I saw this on Sunday Night Baseball when it was Padres and Braves, and it caught my interest. Do the Cardinals, when will they get to this point, and B, do they have the lineup to do this? So the San Diego Padres, we talk about Manny Machado. We agree. He's a really good player. Xander Bogaerts, we agree. Really good bat. Maybe not a good defender, but a really good bat. Padres on Sunday Night Baseball hit Machado 5 and Bogaerts 6. Do the Cardinals, when do you get to that point if you're the Cardinals where you got to move Goldie and Arenado to that spot? And B, do you have the roster that can support that kind of a move?
I think you might. You might have the roster. It would require Gorman to start really hitting at a significant level
I think
again, and Burleson being one of those guys.
I think it's going to require you having Walker back and hitting. That's when you can do it.
So the problem is a lot of their guys that are hitting at the top of the order right now are lefties too. You can't just go lefty, 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 lefty at the top of your order.
It would look great against righties.
Yeah, but then they bring in a left-handed reliever late in a game, and they're just mowing through.
This team is too left-handed heavy.
Mm-hmm.
You need Walker.
They need Walker, or they have to go get a right-handed bat.
Once
you get Walker and Contreras back, that's when you start to feel much better about it. But I don't think the Cardinals will ever do that, though. I think they're going to keep them there.
BK, Paul Goldschmidt's batting .269 in the last week. Stop hating, bro. I'm not hating, bro.
He just has 5 other weeks.
He's been really bad for the vast majority of the season. In his last 9 games, he's batting .275, and he does have a slugging percentage of .450.
Look, bro,
it's an OPS still below 800, but it's better. Maybe that's the start of something significant, but it's such a small sample size, man.
Look, bro, don't get into a numbers game with BK. You'll fail.
Yeah, you better check that, bro.
Bruh.
Right, if you guys missed anything from the show, check it out on the podcast
He'll be there Saturday.
We appreciate you tuning in as always. I will be at Max in downtown Alton on Friday night. T-Bone will be there on Saturday. Alex will be there both Friday and Saturday. So looking forward to that. We will talk to you guys right here on 101 ESPN tomorrow at 11 a.m. Don't forget Tom Stillman joining the morning show tomorrow at 8 a.m. Fastlane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.